Before we jump to week 7, there is just a little bit of business still outstanding from week 6. And that is this match between the Yosemite Yolteons and the West Wego Whiscash, played so late that it was after my cutoff to get the recording done for week 6, but they did get the match done in the end. The Yolteons brought all the usual group. Most of the usual group. There's no Gardevoir. I guess they have more than 6 Pokemon in the usual group. They brought Gengar, Raichu, Gyarados, Breloom, Ditto, and Hydreigon. And as usual, it's a well-rounded mix of Pokemon that will try to do... That will probably try to play kind of a balancey game and break the opponent's team apart. Gyarados looks super interesting here, except with the Gastrodon lurking. Because, of course, it intimidates Terrakion and Landorus, which are 2 of the main offensive threats that the Whiscash have. The third one is Mega Metagross, which isn't even here. And Gyarados is able to not only intimidate them, but of course also target their weakness to water. Gastrodon, though, can redirect his water-type attacks, so they need good answers to Gastrodon. I could see, like, Hidden Power Grass Raichu if they want to pair that with Gyarados, or we could see Energy Ball Gengar like the Genie Incarnate used against, not Gastrodon, Mega Swampert in Pool B. There's, of course, the Breloom as well. Honestly, I wouldn't even be shocked by Hidden Power Grass Gyarados, but they must have some answer to Gastrodon up their sleeve, because with that removed, Gyarados looks super strong into the opponent's team. And then Ditto is always fun to watch, and so is Mega Gengar, so lots of interesting Pokemon here. On the Whiscash side, they have brought 2 of their 3 big-ticket physical attackers. Again, both of them weak to Gyarados, but they do have Gastrodon to cover it. They also have... Terrakion, with its Rock and Fighting Stabs, looks super strong into this team if you can deal with the Gyarados and the Breloom. And Landorus can help you, at least with the latter, and it can also intimidate Gyarados. So Terrakion also able to hit things very hard under the right circumstances. They have Illumise and Porygon 2 for speed control options, as well as other disruptive support. The Gastrodon could be very important here, like I keep saying. And finally, as I started to say a moment ago, they have brought Hippopotas, so they are able to set up the sand, chip down everything on the Yolteons. Of course, their physical offensive core is all immune to sand damage, and Terrakion even gets a special defense boost from it, but otherwise, I don't know if we'll actually see Hippopotas come to a game, because I don't really know how it stands up to any of Gyarados, Breloom, Gengar, Hydreigon, even the Gardevoir that's not here. Not really sure what Hippopotas is here to do. Maybe they set Trick Room with Porygon too, and the Hippopotas is able to knock out Gengar with his Ground Stab, but my guess is we probably won't see it in an actual game. Well, let's find out. I love when I'm proven wrong immediately. Genuinely, it's super fun. Hippopotas does show up to an actual game right away with Terrakion, so Terrakion will get that boost against Raichu and Ditto, and Ditto transforms into Hippopotas. So I've gone from thinking we'll see 0 Hippopotas probably to actually seeing 2 Hippopotas immediately at the beginning of the very first game. Alright, wonderful. I absolutely love it. I really do. And I've heard, because I saw the Discord discussion, I've heard that something incredible is going to happen on turn 1, but I have no idea what it is. I've just heard that turn 1 was nuts, so let's find out right now. Ditto actually gets to be the one to set the sand. Terrakion throws a close combat at Raichu, knocks it down to a Focus Sash. It reveals a Life Orb. Raichu goes for Endeavor immediately. Of course, Terrakion will not be knocked out by sand damage because it's immune. We see Ditto click Yawn into Hippopotas, and Hippopotas goes for a Substitute, so... Hippopotas, we've seen Substitute and Yawn. I have no idea what its other moves are, but it's going to take a nap immediately, and that means that Substitute, well, unless it switches, but either way, that Substitute is probably not that valuable to it. That said, Terrakion will survive this turn, so we'll see if it gets a chance to attack something. Raichu will drop the sand damage. But now Breloom is here, can threaten Terrakion with a Mach Punch. Terrakion switches out immediately to Porygon 2. Ditto switches out immediately to Gyarados. Only manages to intimidate the Porygon 2. It is a Mach Punch. It still does a lot of damage to Porygon 2. That was some serious damage. I don't know if that thing's holding an Eviolite. Hippopotas will use its last turn awake to land a Yawn into Breloom. But again, Breloom is probably not really... I think it's probably not really that pressured, right? Because we know what their Pokemon in the back is. It's Ditto. I think you can just switch Breloom out and turn your Ditto into Porygon 2 and you're probably fine. But we'll see. And Hippopotas will take a nap now. It does still have its Substitute. Porygon 2 just protecting here, so it'll avoid another Mach Punch. They do just go for the Mach Punch, so they'll let Breloom fall asleep here. They were looking for the KO on Porygon 2, they don't get it. Gyarados breaks the Substitute. I mean, Gyarados should be able to knock out the Porygon 2 anyway. Hippopotas tries to move first, so it probably went for Protect there. which would mean we know 3 of its moves: Substitute, Yawn, and Protect. I would think the last one is an attack, but then the Substitute is still kind of confusing to me. Wait, what if Porygon 2 doesn't have the Eviolite because Hippopotas has it? Or is Hippopotas shown leftovers? Sometimes I miss that. No, it hasn't. What if Porygon 2 doesn't... What if Porygon 2 is taking so much damage because Hippopotas has the Eviolite? And what if its last move is Slack Off and it just doesn't do any damage except the sand? But it's meant to stick around for a while. I don't know. We'll see. Waterfall does knock out the Porygon 2, thanks to Mach Punch doing so much damage earlier and also the sand chipping it a bit. So now Breloom stays asleep, Hippopotas stays asleep, Terrakion comes right back in, immediately misses a Stone Edge into Gyarados. That move really living up to its nickname, as Gyarados will take the KO on Hippopotas. Hippopotas never managed to wake up, unfortunately. We don't get to find out the rest of its set just yet, hopefully in Game 2 or 3. Terrakion, yeah, huge Stone Edge miss. Gyarados still just gets to be a threat. Although, we see Gastrodon as the last Pokemon for the Whiscash, so Breloom can knock out Terrakion anytime it wants now that it's awake. But then, the question is, can Gyarados damage the Gastrodon? I mean, even if it can't, Breloom probably can knock that out fairly quickly. So Breloom will probably be the hero of Game 1. We see a Mach Punch into Terrakion. We see an Ice Fang crit into Gastrodon, so that does some reasonable damage. And actually, Breloom does not get to be the hero, as Gastrodon knocks it out with a Sludge Bomb. But now Ditto will come in. Because it's on the opposite side of the field from Gastrodon, it doesn't transform. Normally with Imposter, it would transform into whatever's across from it, but there's nothing across from it. But that's fine. It's easy to forget now, but Ditto's original method of transforming is the move Transform, and that's what it'll use here to turn into a Gastrodon on a little bit of a delay. I don't know why its type is showing up as question mark, the question marks type here. That just seems like a Showdown quirk, probably. But anyway, another Ice Fang. That does decent damage even without the crit this time. Gyarados takes very little from a Sludge Bomb. One more Ice Fang, but Gastrodon survives, so Ditto gets the chance to grab the KO with Earth Power. Alright, so... The Hippopotas was a lot of fun to see, especially on both sides of the field, but the Whiscash they were just not able to prevent their team from getting swept here. The Hippopotas falling asleep immediately and not showing what else it can do is probably an issue for them. But also, that Endeavor Raichu strikes again. That has been a menace throughout the season, and the way that it got Terrakion down to 1 HP, and therefore always guaranteed in range of Breloom Mach Punch, did a lot to keep the main offensive threat from the Whiscash in check, especially since they didn't bring Landorus to this game, and the Porygon 2 took so much damage switching in on a Mach Punch, and using Raichu and Breloom to take down Terrakion meant that they didn't have to rely on Gyarados, when in fact it turned out the Gastrodon was lurking in the back. So let's see if we see something different from the Whiscash in Game 2. As much fun as the Hippopotas is to watch, maybe we'll see Landorus this time. But let's find out. It's Hippopotas turn 1 with Porygon 2 this time against Breloom and Gyarados. Okay. Porygon 2 will... Oh, got an attack boost from download, so all that did was clear the Intimidate, but that's not really actually going to boost any damage that it wants to do, most likely. Anyway, it's just going to protect turn 1. Waterfall into Hippopotas immediately, does about 3/4, and then a Bullet Seed from Breloom only needs 1 hit to knock it out. Sadly, still no more information on what this Hippopotas is trying to do, as it will not get a substitute in this game. And there's no Ditto putting it to sleep this time, just knocked out immediately. It would rather face itself than these other threats, I guess. Anyway, Terrakion will come in here. It's not intimidated. It can go for a Stone Edge into Gyarados, and we know that Breloom can't switch in as their only Rock Resist because it's already on the field. They could always throw something else at this or protect... I mean, they have options. They could dodge another Stone Edge. That was a pretty good option in Game 1. And Breloom is... probably feeling pretty good right now, staring down these 2 fighting weaknesses that we know take a lot of damage from its attacks. Mach Punch goes into Porygon 2, does less than it did in Game 1, but still more than half, so another one will definitely KO. Terrakion lands the Stone Edge this time. Ice Beam into Breloom, but Porygon 2 did not get the special attack boost, so Breloom will survive this, even after the Sand Chip. And now Ditto comes in and turns into Terrakion. Alright, Ditto has transformed into 3 different Pokemon already. And we're probably in like the middle game of Game 2. Porygon 2 swapping out here to Gastrodon. It'll be interesting to see if Breloom goes for the KO on that slot. It does. And Gastrodon takes the Mach Punch reasonably well, but then Ditto outspeeds Terrakion. I have not been speculating on Ditto's item. I feel like it has usually been outspeeding the things that it turns into. But when it turned into Gastrodon, was it slower than Gyarados? I think it was. So I was kind of thinking it might be Scarf Ditto from the moment we saw it set up the sand before Hippopotas even could, but I'm not convinced that I Scarf Ditto, and therefore these could be speed ties. And if that's the case, it's winning a lot of them. But I probably have to open up the Game 1 replay again to be sure. Whatever the answer is, it moves before Terrakion here and just wipes it out with a close combat. Breloom taking Sand Chip, but still surviving. Porygon 2's back. Of course, it can protect to get through another turn, but it doesn't, so it just eats a close combat, gets knocked down. And Breloom did not go for Mach Punch here, so it probably went for Bullet Seed into Gastrodon. And it crits the first one. I doubt that mattered. There's no Rindo Berry. Gastrodon's just out of here, and in the end, I talked up a lot at preview just how powerful the Gyarados looked into this Whiscash lineup, but it was actually mostly Breloom that swept these games, targeting... Well, I mean, it makes sense with 4 different Pokemon on the other side being weak to its stabs, and those being the 4 that came to both games, actually. They brought their Grass and Fighting weaknesses to both games, so Breloom kind of got to run away with this one. Despite Substitute Hippopotas doing its best. Anyway, that finally is the end of Week 6. Now on to Week 7. I said it right this time. Let's go. And okay, now it actually is Week 7. We have crossed the 3-quarter mark in the regular season. Teams are making their final pushes for playoff spots. Some teams have locked those spots up already, but are still competing for seeding. We're just trying to keep their momentum going. But there's a lot of competition for the spots lower down in the bracket as well. And of course, we also are getting close to the trade deadline. The trade deadline is the end of Week 7, which means some trades will take effect only for Week 8. And there will be more to cover next week. But there are already a lot of trades to see here as people are finalizing their rosters for that last push. Here are the standings in Pool A going into Week 7. So as always, this is exactly the same table that I showed in Monday's video. You can go back to that to see how the Halifax Masquerade Men did against the Westwego Whiscash. But as for the rest of the teams here, reminder that the cooler London Vespiquens have unfortunately withdrawn from the league, so I can guarantee that they won't be improving their position on this table. But there are still quite a few teams fighting it out for those last playoff spots. The Rhine Green Blue Porygon 2s and the Yosemite Yolteons currently tied for the very last spot, so if their position doesn't change, only one of them will be able to make it, but still, of course, room for both of them to pass a team like the Marshadows or the Dewotts, and shake that bracket up even further. And also the East Coast Espurr is still undefeated after 6 weeks. And in Pool B, it's a similar story. The Ontario Oguris undefeated after 6 weeks, in fact, currently holding what would be the #1 seed in the combined playoff bracket. Then we have Genie, Incarnate, and Bois taking up the next 2 spots. There is sort of a big 3 in this pool, but it's not necessarily the teams that I thought it was. But then, again, a lot of competition toward the lower end. Once again, the Foggy Fearos have withdrawn from the league, so we will not see them rise in the standings. But if you look at those 2 and 4 teams, right now one of them makes the playoffs. The Salt Lake City Toxic, after their win by forfeit last week, sitting in that last playoff spot, which means they, the Tynamos, the Girafarig, and with 2 games left, even the Snorunts, are all very much still in contention. So still anything could happen in Pool B as, again, teams make that final push and we finalize that bracket. Now it's trade time. There are quite a few. In fact, I almost missed one while I was preparing, but it starts here with something pretty drastic, actually. The Minnesota Marshadows have dropped Mega Charizard Y, Aromatisse, and Jumpluff. I alluded to them getting rid of Aromatisse in Monday's video, and I only remembered at the editing stage that I hadn't actually shown it yet. But they've dropped those 3, and they've picked up Latios, Mega Gyarados, and Lairon. So after these moves, this team's Megas are now Gyarados and Sableye. It's an interesting combination for sure, but yeah, the loss of their first round pick, not lost, they voluntarily dropped it, but getting rid of their first round pick, one of the very first few picks in Pool A, is not something that I saw coming. But Mega Charizard Y, I think, has just been a little bit too difficult for this team to make work, and the coach did also allude to it being especially difficult in their 2 remaining matchups this regular season. Mega Charizard Y, of course, being massively powerful, but that means that it has a huge target on its back, and it also has some very exploitable weaknesses, especially with that double weakness to Rock. So one of the strongest Mega Pokemon for sure, but not necessarily the easiest to make work in a Draft League format. And it does have its good matchups and its bad ones, and admittedly this team has had a little bit of difficulty throughout the season when it's had to rely on Mega Sableye as that one Mega carry. We've seen Pokemon like Conkeldurr and Metagross and Melodic, but don't get too attached to that one. Putting in some work throughout the season, but Latios makes some sense to me as a splashable power. Latios and Mega Gyarados as more splashable powerhouses that can put them through. They can power them through some tougher matchups where Mega Charizard Y comes up a bit short. Latios and Mega Gyarados have their bad matchups as well, but notably they are two very strong offensive Pokemon being swapped in for only one, and they don't have anything quite like Charizard's rock weakness. Aromatisse has been kind of interesting for this team, especially against my Cresselia in whatever week we played, where it was we both set up a bunch of Calm Minds and it was basically a game of who would crit first, but I feel like we haven't seen Aromatisse do a ton else throughout the season, so getting more firepower from the combination of Latios and Gyarados makes sense to me. I have no idea what Lairon is for on this team. I'm stumped by that one. I mean, it can hold an Eviolite, but then it gets very bulky, especially on the physical side, but I don't know what it does then while it sits on the field. But I haven't checked the point values on these. I didn't pay attention, as I think probably they had to go lower in points. Lairon has to be the cheapest Pokemon in this image. So to make the roster work, I think they just had to get something further down the draft board, and maybe they have a specific plan for Lairon and I don't know what it is, but of course getting rid of Jumpluff makes sense when they're getting rid of the Sunsetter. Jumpluff being a great support Pokemon, mainly with that Chlorophyll ability, but if they're not bringing the Sun anymore, then it's understandable that they would get rid of it. I mean, Jumpluff is still not bad because it's fast and has a great support move pool, but you do want to pair it mainly with the Charizard Y, so if you get rid of one, it makes sense to get rid of the other. So overall, I mean, this was a super surprising move to me because Mega Charizard Y is just such a cornerstone Pokemon for a draft. You don't really expect it to ever be dropped, but this does make sense to me, and the team is certainly still very strong with the additions of Latios and Mega Gyarados, and where a lot of their successful game plans have been built around other Pokemon anyway, they do kind of just make their team more flexible here. But even if you're not convinced of all that, because again, it's really hard to understand getting rid of Mega Charizard Y, like I said, the coach said in the Discord that their last two matchups were difficult for it, and with the Marshadows currently sitting at 500, in a playoff spot, but just barely, definitely in danger of falling out. And I'll just tell you now, they play the Espurr this week, so not exactly an easy schedule the rest of the way. I mean, these are the kinds of tough choices that you have to make as a coach late in the season, right? Do you shake up your roster just for that? If you can get into the playoffs, you have a chance to win the whole thing, right? You just have to... Someone is guaranteed to win out. You just have to make that you. But to get into the playoffs in the first place, sometimes you have to make some tough decisions, and that's what we've got here. And there is one follow-up, as the Marshadows also dropped Melodic for Mo form Rotom. And I was a little surprised by this at first because Melodic has put in a lot of work for this team, but they did just pick up a different powerful water type, right? You don't necessarily need Melodic. I mean, you could play certain roles with it, but you probably don't need it so much anymore when you have Mega Gyarados as a more offensive kind of bulky water. And they have a Fire Water Grass Core now. Glancing over that, unless I'm missing something, I don't think they have a Fire type, but they do... yeah, Melodic you could say is a little bit redundant with Gyarados, even though their roles are not entirely the same, and they do here now replace the support grass type that they dropped with one that, again, has a little bit more of an offensive kick to it. Jumpluff, not really ever doing any damage. Rotom can, and it has that electric typing as well. Electric types are always pretty valuable in draft, so again, I think it makes the team a little bit more dynamic. They have a lot of different combinations of Pokemon they can throw at their opponents. They have Double Dragon. They still have some weird, tricky supports with the Sableye before Mega Evolving it, the Rotom depending on its set, the Mr. Mime. They can run game plans around Pokemon like Conkeldurr and Metagross like they've been doing, but then, yeah, Rotom and Mega Gyarados just make this team a little bit more flexible, a little bit more dynamic, and help to offset the loss of Mega Charizard Y. So very surprising stuff all around, but it does make sense. Next, the Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s have finally picked up a second Mega. I don't know what happened to these images, but we're just going to live with it. But they got rid of Aurorus, Chatot, and Glaceon to pick up Spinarak, Zorua, and Garchomp. Mega Garchomp. So, obviously, again, there's some points budgeting going on here. Like, Spinarak and Zorua cannot have been expensive Pokemon. But for the most part, I think this move just makes a lot of sense with the way the Porygon 2s have been playing so far. The Porygon 2s have really kind of relied on Mega Abomasnow as their entire Hail mode for a while now. We haven't seen Oguris very often. I don't think we've seen Glaceon very often recently. And Abomasnow has been doing a ton of work just setting up Hail for itself and then clicking that Blizzard button. I think that has been enough, and they just haven't been getting a lot of value out of those other roster spots. Plus, Oguris and Glaceon have so many exploitable weaknesses, especially when those are largely shared with Mega Abomasnow. I think these coaches just had difficulty bringing them week by week. And so letting Mega Abomasnow be a one Pokemon Hail mode and picking up something else to run a different mode with makes a lot of sense to me. Picking up a second Mega makes a lot of sense when they haven't had one all season. Garchomp is probably not what you'd think of as the strongest Mega, but remember, you do have to have it hold the Garchomp height, but you don't have to Mega Evolve it, so you do also get a Garchomp out of this without full use of its item slot, but like, you get that base 102 speed offensive threat if you want. It gives them something fast, apart from just Manchow, that they can throw at their opponents so they're not hard committed to their Trick Room mode. And then they can also Mega Evolve it for those higher stats situationally. But Garchomp is still, even with a Garchomp height, a super strong Pokemon if you bring that and Mega Evolve your Abomasnow, right? So I think, again, it does make this team more dynamic. It largely just steps in for some Pokemon that they weren't getting a lot of use out of anyway, and that's going to make the team that much harder to deal with. And then I think there are some budget picks for the others. I don't remember them ever bringing Chatots, so I don't think there's much cost to dropping that. But Spinarak, I believe, gets Rage Powder, so it can at least do that. And it could poison things if you want. Also, it can give you some speed control, right? Because it gets like String Shot and Sticky Web and stuff. So there are a few things it could do, but I think Rage Powder is the main one. And then Zora was not very strong, but maybe they have some smart game plan that involves tricking an opponent with Illusion. It's definitely something their opponents will have to think about from here. But I think Mega Garchomp is the main addition here, and they really haven't given up a whole lot to get it, so makes perfect sense to me. Next we have the Halifax Masquerade Men dropping Exeggutor and Vulpix for Stantler and Butterfree. I explained this one at length in Monday's video. Concise version. I wasn't doing a whole lot with these two Pokemon anyway. Vulpix is just not very strong, and Exeggutor I found to be kind of redundant with Trevenant, at least in the game plans that I was running. So I had spent a while this season looking for anything I might be interested in picking up to replace these two, since I wasn't getting much use out of them anyway. And in Stantler and Butterfree, I found a couple of things that my team didn't have already. A Trick Room setter that's not weak to Dark and Ghost, and Redirection with Butterfree's Rage Powder, plus Stantler gets Intimidate, and Butterfree gets a more accurate Sleep Powder than Exeggutor, so I don't even give up Sleep Powder. That's the gist of this one. The Edmonton Exeggcute have dropped Azumarill and picked up Slowbro. I don't think I can explain this one very easily, because Azumarill feels like the kind of Pokemon that they would want to use with those Belly Drum setup game plans, but I feel like they haven't actually been getting much use out of Azumarill. Their game plans have tended to focus pretty heavily on the Smeargle and the Mega Blaziken. And I suppose what Slowbro can do is set Trick Room for their Golurk, and they can throw off Perfect Accuracy, Dynamic Punch, or whatever. With the way this coach tends to play is probably a serious idea. So, I mean, it might be as simple as that. Slowbro gives them a tankier water type. I guess it has like Heal Pulse. It can heal something like, I mean, if Speargold Blaziken could take a hit, which is an issue for them, they do like to try to do these elaborate multi-turn setup game plans. Maybe Smeargle can, it gets Yawn too, right? So maybe it can help them pull those off, but maybe it's just here to set Trick Room for Golurk. I feel like Azumarill is more the kind of Pokemon that I associate with this coach, but they can only build their game plans around so many things in a given week, and it's usually been Smeargle and Blaziken, so if Slowbro has some support value, and then I guess I can understand it. The Elegancy have dropped, they've dropped Goodra, Starmie, and Shiftry for Dragalge, Sigilyph, and Slowbro. So Slowbro picked up in back-to-back trades. I am not sure that I immediately understand this one, especially when Starmie has felt like one of the most important Pokemon for the Elegancy throughout the season. I mean, big picture, the Elegancy had a strong start to the season, and they've been struggling a bit in recent weeks, so I can understand wanting to shake up their roster. Starmie has been very strong for them, but it's also kind of been at odds with some of their game plans, where they've had difficulty making the fast Pokemon work with like Dusclops Trick Room stuff. They could just be moving in more of a Trick Room oriented direction, with them also picking up Slowbro here while keeping the Dusclops. And then Heatran is not especially fast, and Moongus can be strong in Trick Room, so can Mega Mawile. They still have Tailwind options. Sigilyph gives them another Tailwind setter. I feel like Goodra has not been performing super well for this team, so Dragalge as kind of a more focused special attacker or whatever they might want it to be. Also being pretty slow, so a little bit better in Trick Room I can understand. But yeah, I guess this is a team with dynamic speed control and a difficult to break Rotom Amoonguss Heatran core, much like the Dewotts in Pool A. Actually, that's a big thing Slowbro gives them. It gives them a bulky water with Amoonguss and Heatran. That's an especially hard defensive core to break now, especially with, I think, Slowbro getting Regenerator, and Amoonguss, of course, getting Regenerator as well. They can really grind out some slow and frustrating games for their opponents with that core, so the Slowbro pickup is pretty big for that already. And I guess where Starmie felt like one of their most important offensive Pokemon, but it still wasn't really getting enough done. Slowbro might be an improvement for that kind of slower game plan. You could play it positionally, maybe get Mega Mawile in position to take some big KOs, or Dragalge even. It's a different playstyle from what we've seen from them so far, but I think it could work very well. So if they are looking to make that kind of adjustment, then these moves make a lot of sense. And they still have the Trick Room game plans available, and they can do Tail Room stuff with Sigilyph, giving them, again, a Tailwind option here. So I'm a little bit surprised that some of their main Pokemon have been dropped, but I mean, they did keep the Amoonguss and Heatran together, and Slowbro is, again, a very complementary piece with them, so they're still building something strong here. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the rest of the season, though I'm a little bit worried that I'll have some long games to cover. But I think it's time to go and find that out now, because I believe this is the last of these trades for Week 7. The trade deadline, again, is right at the end of Week 7. Actually, as I'm recording, it's in a couple hours or so. But, no, Eastern Time. It's in more than a couple hours, but not a lot more. But there will be more trades to see in Week 8. But that's it for now, and it's time to go to the games. This week, we get a look right away at a team's new, well, look, with the Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s taking on the Grounded Punching Bags, a team we did not see last week. Also, I forgot to say it, we won't see the Exeggcute or the Elegancy this week because their opponents withdrew from the league. Same kind of thing next week. There will be a couple teams not featured for that reason. But anyway, those two teams get wins by forfeit. Again, that's the Edmonton Exeggcute and the Elegancy. I meant to say that when I was on the last scene. Anyway, Ryan Green Blue Porygon 2s versus Grounded Punching Bags. The Punching Bags, what do they have? What do these Pokemon do? I feel like this is not what I'm used to seeing from this team, although the Crobat and Infernape have been going crazy for them throughout the season. I truly do not know what the game plan is here. I mean, they definitely look prepared to deal with a snow mode with the Infernape and the Gigalith. Reminder, Gigalith does not get Sandstream in Generation 6. Actually, the Mega Garchomp pickup might be very helpful for the Porygon 2s here, because it looks like their opponent brought a lot to deal with Ice types, but they don't have that many Ice types anymore. Mega Garchomp could go crazy here. It is outsped by Crobat. It's threatened by Slurpuff, especially if they activate on Burden with that. The Tangela Redirection could be a threat, so it's not necessarily super straightforward. But yeah, I think Bronzong and Abomasnow are in danger against some of these Pokemon. Togekiss kind of has to be afraid of Crobat to an extent, but I could see Mega Garchomp having a great debut here. And they also brought the Wash Rotom, which I feel like we haven't seen in a while, even though it gave me a fair bit of trouble all the way back in Week 1. And that might be helpful to slowing down the Crobat that has outsped and powered through some opposing teams. But overall, the game plans here are not super clear to me. I'm looking for big things from Mega Garchomp. We'll see if it happens. I will note that Zoroark is also here, so that should be fun. We've seen Zoroark play some interesting tricks throughout the season. The Punching Bags didn't bring a Mega. That's one thing that just caught my attention. I think Manectric is the only one they have, and they haven't brought it here. So maybe that was scared off by the Mega Garchomp. But anyway, let's see what we get here. It's Bronzong and Mienshao. Alright, so all that talk about the new look, and it's a classic Porygon 2's lead against Infernape and Tangela on the other side. Fake Out goes into Tangela, interesting, not into Infernape, so Infernape gets a clear shot at Bronzong here. I wonder whether it's either Occaberry or Heatproof Bronzong. But we just see a Taunt, actually. It's Mental or Bronzong, so no Occaberry. So the Taunt will, if they're going for a Trick Room or even a Gravity or something here, the Taunt will not stop that. Actually, Gravity is pretty scary in front of Tangela, right? Because it could start Sleep Powdering you with the boosted accuracy. But it is Trick Room. No insight yet on whether this... You never expect Heatproof Bronzong, but I guess into this team it could be. I don't know if they have any ground type. Mienshao will switch out here for Togetic. Interesting. As Bronzong, no gravity, just goes for Hypnosis anyway and successfully lands it into Infernape. What's that, like 60%? They used to tweak Hypnosis a bunch back in those middle generations. It'd be like, it would go to like 70, 60, whatever. I think it's 60, maybe not. But whatever, they landed it into Infernape. Togekiss is interesting because what's the big attacker to go with this Trick Room? It's probably a Abomasnow, right? Maybe not. Maybe it's Garchomp. Anyway, Ring Out goes into Togekiss for, I don't know, some damage as Infernape takes a nap. Now we see Tangela switch out to Gigalith. We see the gravity go up now. Is Togekiss going for a nasty plot? Togekiss might be the offensive engine here after all. Bronzong going for the Hypnosis in gravity this time, lands it into Gigalith. Maybe it speaks to how scary this Infernape was for the Bronzong, that Bronzong went for Hypnosis before gravity earlier. But yeah, that is accuracy boosted Hypnosis now, so both of these Pokemon are asleep. This is going to be Dazzling Gleam from Togekiss. It is. It one-shots Infernape. It does not amazing damage to Gigalith. Now Tangela's back. Tangela is going to take a nap. It might have the accuracy boosted Sleep Powder, but it's not slower than Bronzong and Trick Room. It gets wiped out by Dazzling Gleam. Gigalith is still here, holding up pretty well as the Trick Room ended, so I neglected to mention that until now, but I think it's pretty clear as this Crobat showing Sludge Bomb, a special attack. Interesting. I mean, Crobat's not super strong on either attacking stat, so there's no reason he can't go special with it. Certainly strong enough to take out this Togekiss and remove the +2 threat there, but with Gigalith asleep and at low HP and everyone else fainted, can Crobat really sweep through here? I don't know what's beating Bronzong at this point. Well, oh no, Heatproof Bronzong is not confirmed. Gravity is up, so even if it does have Levitate, it would still be hit by Bulldoze there. We still don't know Bronzong's ability for sure. Gigalith showing a Bulldoze. It does also hit its partner because Crobat is also grounded by the gravity. In fact, I think that did more to Crobat than it did to Bronzong, so maybe not the greatest thing for them there. Speed drops are not going to be super important. Bronzong still clicking Hypnosis in that gravity, puts Crobat to sleep, and now Mienshao is back. Fake Out will not KO the Gigalith. We get confirmation that Blowbob forgot the gravity. And Bronzong now with a -1 Gyro Ball. The drop probably doesn't matter there, right? Because I think Gyro Ball is calculated by relative speed. The slower you are relative to the opponent, the more it does. And so -1 Bronzong, -1 Crobat. The relationship should be about the same as without the Bulldoze. But Crobat's super fast and Bronzong's super slow, so that's going to hit hard anyway. Crobat's out of here. And all that's left is a U-turn to knock out the Gigalith. We've seen Fake Out and U-turn from this Mienshao. I wonder whether they're hiding something or they just don't have a fighting attack. But maybe we'll find out in Game 2. That was a pretty quick one. The +2 Nasty Plot Togekiss went crazy there. So did the Hypnosis Bronzong that we've seen, I think, a few times now this season. And the Porygon 2s were able to clean up that endgame. Now we go to Game 2. And it's Bronzong and Mienshao again, same lead, against Infernape and Crobat. So a little bit of a difference there. One thing that could happen here that's kind of fun, actually, I don't think it's going to work, but if the Crobat has Taunt, I think Crobat gets Taunt, maybe it doesn't, they could both Taunt Bronzong, and then one of them would activate the Mental Herb, and the other one would actually successfully Taunt it. The reason I don't think that's going to work is they can just Fake Out the Infernape. You can't Fake Out the Crobat, because it probably has Inner Focus. Maybe Ryan Green Blue forgets that and goes for Fake Out into Crobat, and Double Taunt actually happens, but the Fake Out into Infernape seems pretty safe here. What's Crobat going to do to stop Bronzong from getting going again like in the last game? Actually, it's just Detect from Mienshao. Heat Wave from Crobat, so there's an answer to my question, but Bronzong did not take much from that. Double Heat Wave from both, and that's got to be Heat-proof Bronzong. I mean, I kind of sniffed it out earlier, right? When I saw they just went for their Trick Room against the Infernape, and I saw the Mental Herb, and I saw no ground types here. I don't remember whether the punching bags have anything that you would run Levitate for, very likely. I mean, they could run, well, they have Bulldoze on Gigalith. They could run something stronger. But you don't necessarily have to cover for that. So yeah, I did kind of guess from what we saw early in Game 1 that it was Heat-proof Bronzong, but I would say that's confirmed now. That does make it kind of interesting that it went for Hypnosis into Infernape before setting Gravity in Game 1. That paid off pretty nicely for them as they still landed the Hypnosis, and the Gravity lasted long enough for them to put everybody else to sleep. So can't criticize it, but that was the one thing that had me questioning a little bit about the Bronzong ability. But that Bronzong took like nothing from those fire attacks. That's crazy. It did get burned though. Now we see the Garchomp finally hit the field. We see Gravity, and there's something I didn't think about actually. It did occur to me that the Porygon 2s could click Earthquake with Mega Garchomp next to Togekiss and actually next to a bunch of Pokemon. just in this game, they brought Togekiss, Rotom, and Bronzong, all of which are flying types or can have Levitate. And then, of course, Mienshao gets Wide Guard, so it can also protect itself at the cost of its own action from an Earthquake. I sort of had the beginning of that thought when I was covering the trade, and I didn't get all the way through it, but actually that's a big plus to picking up Mega Garchomp specifically for this team, that they have so many partners they can click Earthquake next to. The tricky thing is, if they set Gravity, then their Pokemon will be grounded and will be hit by the Earthquake. But that's also true of the opponent's Pokemon, so there absolutely are positions where that's beneficial as well. They can Earthquake this Crobat now. So, yeah, Mega Garchomp actually does a lot for this team. And I sort of started to figure it out when I was looking at the trade earlier, but maybe I'll cut some of this out and put it back there. But I didn't put the thought all the way together until we got into a game here. Crobat switches out to Gigalith. Speaking of Earthquake targets, actually with the Gravity up, half of what the Punching Bags brought are weak to ground, and we know that all of that half came to this game. There's the Mega on the Garchomp. Gigalith protects. Bronzong just going for Hypnosis. Garchomp didn't click Earthquake this turn, it clicked Earthquake, so Bronzong free to go for a Hypnosis into Gigalith. It does miss. How did the sun... or not miss, it goes into a Protect. How did the sun go up? Infernape used Sunny Day last turn? Okay. Will-O-Wisp into Garchomp, so Mega Garchomp is a +2 attack, but it's also burned. Infernape showing Heat Wave, Sunny Day, Will-O-Wisp, and we know its last move is Taunt, so more of a support Infernape than we've seen from this team in the past. Well, let's see if that's enough to slow this Garchomp down. Crobat's going to switch back in here. Gigalith will take a nap. Garchomp just goes for another Swords Dance. That's a +4 attack now. That burn, maybe not going to accomplish everything the Punching Bags wanted. That Heat-Proof Mental Herb is just game-winning, says Blowbob in the chat. Clearly impressed by the opponent's text there. Hypnosis goes into Crobat and connects, and Garchomp just going for the Earthquake. They will sack the Bronzong here. Crobat knocked out. Bronzong knocked out. This thing was actually Zoroark. Should I have picked up on that earlier? Protect. It just used Protect and went to sleep, right? So I didn't have any clear clues that it was the Zoroark. But we find that out now. There we go. I got surprised. And it survives on a Focus Sash. Gigalith gets sturdy, right? Yeah, of course it does. All the ones in Gen 5 in-game use them. So this Earthquake sweep might be at least a little bit slower than they're expecting. But they didn't bring Slurpuff or Tangelo to this game, so even with the burn, Garchomp's going to be hard to deal with. Trick Room is over now. We see a Fake Out into Infernape. Zoroark will stay asleep. Garchomp switching to Rock Slide, takes out the Zoroark. And that leaves, of course, Infernape and the real Gigalith. Mienshao will switch out to Togekiss here. Gravity is over, so Togekiss is immune to his partner's Earthquake. But Garchomp protecting here as Gigalith blows itself up, knocking out itself and Infernape, so cutting this one short. I don't know what they were covering for with the Protect on Garchomp, but it pays off, I suppose, as... Well, I was looking forward to the Garchomp sweep and seeing Garchomp show up in the stats in a big way in its very first week of the season, but the Punching Bags will rob them of those last 2 KOs, but it is a dramatic, you could say explosive, end to this game, as the Porygon 2s just brought some really solid prep. The Mega Garchomp was super well positioned into this team. The Gravity Bronzong really brought out the best of what this Mega Garchomp can do. We saw the Togekiss go crazy in Game 1. Just an excellent match all around from the Porygon 2s, and you know, I already had a little bit of trouble with this team in Week 1. If I see them in playoffs with a whole new look, who knows what's going to happen. Next, we have the Sinister Hand taking on the Nothing Burger. Sinister Hand... okay. The Mega Tyranitar is back in the lineup. Otherwise, it's pretty similar to what we've seen in recent weeks. As for the Nothing Burger, first Pokemon I always look for over there is Shuckle. No Shuckle here. But whoever knows what this team is cooking. So I think it might be best if I just jump in here. I will say Mega Mawile looks absolutely nuts into this Nothing Burger team. And because I've seen a little bit of the discussion in the Discord, I'm going to say no more and just start watching now. Mega Mawile looks hard for them to deal with. I wonder what they have. So we get Suicune and Chandelure against Machamp and Dragalge. Chandelure switching out immediately to Scrafty, getting the Intimidate on Machamp and Dragalge, but what probably matters more to Dragalge is this Snarl from Suicune. Machamp Unafraid just immediately throws off the Dynamic Punch. That is, of course, with no guard, so it's guaranteed to hit. And Dynamic Punch is 100% confusion rate, so it's guaranteed to confuse the Suicune. Dragalge taking basically nothing from a Shadow Ball Scrafty taking basically nothing from a Shadow Ball that was targeting Chandelure, although it does take a special defense drop. Chandelure shows leftovers. Okay, now we get Protect from a Champ. We get another Snarl, just gradually weakening this Dragalge. Ice Punch from Scrafty, chips it a fair bit. And Scrafty, even at -1 special defense, takes the Focus Blast pretty well after Dragalge knocked to -2 special attack. Scrafty will continue to catch up to it in drops, though, as Dragalge has 100% special defense lowering rate, also getting the Focus Blast drop there. But Scrafty holding on really well here. It'll switch out to Mawile. We get another Intimidate from that. Dragalge protects. Dynamic Punch into Mawile could be crazy, because if it hurts itself in Confusion after Mega Evolving, well, we get a Scald into Machamp, no burn. We do get a Dynamic Punch into Mawile, so Mawile and Suicune both confused now, although Suicune has not yet hurt itself. Gets another Scald into Machamp. Machamp survives and heals up with a Citrus Berry. Machamp could stick around for a while if Mawile hurts itself here. We see Citrus Berry on the Suicune as well, but no, Mawile breaks through and takes out Machamp with a Play Rough. We get a Sludge Bomb into Suicune now, but not a whole lot of damage coming out from the Nothing Burger side. Bayonet comes in. We see the Frisk, but we know Mawile's item, and we know that Suicune doesn't have an item because it already consumed its berry. Scrafty will switch in. Now it's an Intimidate into Bayonet. Bayonet just protecting. Dragalge protecting. Suicune finally snaps out of Confusion. Keeps spamming that Snarl. And now Bayonet switching out to Greninja. The Snarl keeps coming out, but it does get a miss there into Greninja. We'll see if that matters. We've seen a lot of physical Greninja this season, so who knows what this one is running. Knockoff into Greninja will show us its item at least. It's a Life Orb. Okay. Sludge Bomb crits the Suicune and knocks it out. So missing Snarl didn't matter, at least for that turn, because the crit would have done that damage anyway. But we'll see if Greninja benefits from its special attack stat being intact the rest of the way. Of course, Bayonet's still available in the back to switch in as well. Now Mawile's here again. Dragalge is going to protect. It's mixed Greninja. Oh, wait, no, that was not Greninja Sludge Bomb. That was... Oh, that was Dragalge Sludge Bomb. That makes way more sense. I don't know if Greninja even learns Sludge Bomb, though I think it probably does. Greninja switched in, dodged a Snarl. Dragalge took out Suicune with a Sludge Bomb crit, in which case the crit was a pretty big deal, because Dragalge is at like -3 special attack, I think. A bit unlucky for the Sinister hand there. But it does get Mawile on the field. We do see actually physical damage from the Greninja. Maybe it's just a physical one again. Low kick into Scrafty. Really bulky Scrafty, holding on pretty well there. Ice Punch goes into a Protect, and Greninja has, of course, in changing its type to fighting, remained weak to this Play Rough from Mawile. Not that it's very bulky anyway. It gets knocked out. We see Bayonet. We see Skill Swap into Mawile. This is what I knew was coming. Mega Mawile. It's come up before this season, I think. It relies on its ability to be strong. It has huge power. It doesn't have a massive attack stat without that. So if you can disrupt Mega Mawile's ability, that's a pretty good answer to it. And so we do see that skill swap there, giving Prankster to Mega Mawile and giving huge power to Mega Bayonet. So Bayonet's going to hit super hard now if it gets the chance. Scrafty might give it some difficulty with that. We see Sucker Punch from Mawile, presumably targeting the Bayonet, but Bayonet didn't go for an attack. It went for that skill swap. And it had, well, the same priority with Prankster, so it came out first. Of course, Bayonet doesn't have Prankster anymore, but it did that turn. Ice Punch into Dragalge, but Dragalge survives. Focus Blast, still not knocking out the Scrafty. No wonder Dragalge's taking his hits. The Scrafty's like all bulk. Maybe an Assault Vest wouldn't surprise me. But that means Scrafty can keep targeting this Dragalge. Dragalge will protect here. Mawile is still going for that Sucker Punch, but Mega Bayonet showing the Shadow Sneak. So even though... So Mega Bayonet still has priority on that attack, and we've seen that it's faster than the Mega Mawile. And with huge power now, it'll do a lot of damage with that Shadow Sneak and avoid a Sucker Punch. Mega Bayonet could pull this game back. It takes a knockoff from Scrafty there as well. Mawile protects. A Shadow Sneak into Scrafty could be huge now, but Bayonet will protect instead, avoid a knockoff. Sludge Bomb into Scrafty does finally KO. And we get Chandelure back on the field. It's almost knocked out immediately by a Shadow Sneak, but even with that huge power on the Bayonet, Chandelure does manage to hold on. Mawile has given up trying to Sucker Punch the Bayonet, which is good because it wouldn't have worked this turn either. Instead, the Sucker Punch goes into Dragalge. It does not get the KO without huge power. That skill swap is having huge effects on this game so far. But Chandelure will get a chance to Shadow Ball the Bayonet and knock it out. And then Mawile will dodge a Focus Blast. Bit unfortunate for the Nothing Burger there, although with Dragalge so weakened and with Chandelure being faster anyway. I think this game's lost anyway, right? They can just knock out Dragalge with a Shadow Ball. Well, Dragalge will get a bit of leftovers recovery here. Maybe we'll get a look at what the Shadow Ball does, unless the Sucker Punch successfully connects first. Okay, no, Dragalge was still in range of the Shadow Ball, so even if... So the Focus Blast missed into Mawile doesn't matter. The Sinister Hand basically guaranteed won this with Chandelure anyway, but a little bit demoralizing for the Nothing Burger at the end there, although that luck didn't really make a difference to the outcome. So the Sinister Hand do hold on and win this one, but it's pretty close, and the Mega Bayonet with the skill swap made a real difference. It was super disruptive, weakening the Mawile's damage and also doing a ton of damage itself with that Shadow Sneak. So great tech. Let's see if they can do something more with it in Game 2. Whimsicott this time with Dragalge against Suicune and Clefable. Okay. We just see Protect on Dragalge. Whimsicott goes for Taunt into Clefable, so that'll shut down any Follow Me. It's Snarl from Suicune. The Dragalge has avoided it for now. Clefable is going for Calm Mind, actually, not Follow Me. It will be pressured out now as it's unable to set up in front of Taunt Whimsicott. Now we see Tyranitar switch in and set up the Sandstorm. We see Tailwind from the Whimsicott. Suicune Snarl still comes out before Dragalge's move, so it's still stacking up those drops again. Sludge Bomb, no crit this time. Not a ton of damage to Suicune, but it does get the poison. And so Suicune's going to get worn down by its own side's sand and the poison here. It switches out to Scrafty. Tyranitar is protecting. Energy Ball tickles the Scrafty a little bit as Tyranitar avoids a Focus Blast from Dragalge. And then switches out to Clefable. Sure. I mean, the Dragalge is actually kind of scary here because we've seen all 4 Pokemon from the Sinister Hand now. And Dragalge has the coverage to pressure the Tyranitar and the Clefable really well, right? Clefable has no problem coming in on a Focus Blast, even if it connects, but doesn't want to take a Sludge Bomb. But the Suicune, being just generally bulky and weakening the Dragalge with Snarl, makes it harder for Dragalge to really pose that kind of threat. But the Suicune getting poisoned early in this game could make a real difference. So the Dragalge may be the hero. Let's see. Focus Blast into Clefable, it just does like nothing. Ice Punch from Scrafty will take out the Whimsicott. Okay. Dragalge would like to preserve the ability to switch out, I would think, considering those drops. But anyway, Machamp will come in here. Dragalge will switch out while it can. We see Bayonet in the back. We finally do get confirmation of Assault Vest Scrafty. I was pretty sure by this point. We get Life Orb on the Clefable, and I think we've seen that it's Magic Guard Clefable, right? I don't think it's been taking sand damage. So with Magic Guard, it also won't take Life Orb recoil, so that makes sense. Life Orb is just a free damage boost, and you stack that with Calm Mind boosts, and Clefable's pretty scary. Although, if Mega Bayonet wants, it could take away the Magic Guard. I don't think there's that much benefit to it. Bayonet doesn't take sand damage, Clefable does take sand damage and Life Orb damage. That's probably not... Well, they didn't bring Mawile, so maybe you're not doing anything better with Skill Swap in this game. Maybe we'll see it. Anyway, Follow Me from the Clefable. Calm Mind and Follow Me. Flexible in how it's playing with the Life Orb to boost its damage, but also the setup, but also the redirection. Tyranitar's back. Heavy Slam from a Champ. Does a lot to Clefable, but no KO. But good play there from the Nothing Burger. We see 2 Megas. We see Mega Tyranitar and Mega Bayonet here. Another Follow Me from Clefable, redirecting a Shadow Sneak. Clefable surviving at approximately 1 HP. Tyranitar will go for a Rock Slide. Does not very much to Machamp, but gets the flinch, and it does almost not quite half to Bayonet, but the Sand would wear Bayonet down if it didn't stop right here. Tyranitar protecting, not avoiding a Shadow Sneak because the Shadow Sneak goes into Clefable and knocks it out, but it does avoid a Dynamic Punch. And now Scrafty's here. It intimidates these two. Bayonet will protect. Tyranitar staying on the field in front of Machamp. Well, we get our explanation as Scrafty crits Machamp with a Fake Out. Tyranitar still just going for that Rock Slide, though. I mean, it is doing some damage to the Machamp over time, as Machamp is forced to use his Citrus Berry there, but Machamp takes those pretty well, and is still threatening, even at -1 attack, still threatening into these two with that Dynamic Punch, and with Clefable gone, the only Pokemon they have here not weak to fighting is the Suicune, which, of course, again, is kind of weakened already and poisoned, although I believe it still has its berry. Bayonet switches out to Dragalge. Scrafty switches out to Suicune. Tyranitar is protecting here. The Dynamic Punch goes into Suicune. Now Suicune's at fairly low HP. Not after the Citrus Berry. Now Suicune has used its Berry, and it's poisoned, and it's confused. We see a switch from Tyranitar out to Scrafty. Another Intimidate. Suicune finally hurts itself. I feel like that's the first time we've seen a Pokemon do that in this set, which is pretty impressive, what with all the confusion turns. But Suicune finally succumbs to confusion there. As another Dynamic Punch will knock it low. That might be poison damage range. We see Focus Blast into Scrafty. Scrafty takes that pretty well with the Assault Vest. No special defense drop this time. Suicune narrowly hanging on from the poison damage, surviving at approximately 1 HP. We'll get one more chance to do something. Machamp will protect. Dragalge can protect as well, and Suicune just faints to poison damage. It didn't switch here. Machamp avoids a fake out. Suicune knocks itself out anyway. And now it's just Scrafty and Tyranitar, and I wonder, especially with Machamp still able to switch out and get rid of the Intimidate drops, I wonder whether Machamp can clutch this game. Tyranitar is still just going for that Rock Slide. I mean, it could get some good flinches here. Scrafty Drain Punch. Machamp holds off and at. Okay, that's definitely more than 1 HP, but it's not a lot more. And it does flinch, and so does Dragalge. And that's the power of Rock Slide in VGC, especially early generations. But I mean, it can still do that now. It's just not as strong in today's power-crept world as it used to be. But that is kind of a key flinch there, right? I think this was definitely... Actually, it's still hard for the Nothing Burger, because Machamp can take 1 KO here. Maybe. I don't even know if it can. It's at like -2 attack. I feel like Machamp had to switch out. But then it's still under pressure from attacks like that, right? I mean, it barely took those hits. Maybe Machamp was just never able to clutch this. But getting flinched there certainly doesn't help. And now Bayonet's forced onto the field. Bayonet could actually... Bayonet could steal Intimidate from Scrafty and intimidate these two. But I guess it decided Shadow Sneak was more worthwhile. I don't know. Shadow Sneak doesn't do much to either of these, as we saw there. That would work, right? Intimidate would activate immediately if Bayonet stole it from Scrafty. I feel like this is a tough position for the Nothing Burger anyway, but maybe they could have... I don't know. It would have been a cool play. It would have been fun to watch. I don't know how effective it would have been. Rock Slide, doing big damage. Ice Punch will take out the Dragalge, and all that's left is to knock out the Bayonet. We get one more Shadow Sneak into Scrafty. Scrafty definitely one of the heroes of this one. Feels like it sat on the field for quite a long time, as well as pivoting in a bunch with those Intimidates. It pivoted in a bunch, and it sat on the field for a long time. I agree with this. Even though it's a 2-0, it feels like it was closer. Oh, well, they said closer than they expected. It was closer than the final score reveals, is what I'm saying I agree with. I don't know what this coach expected. But I know they talked to the Discord about how there was all that fighting type damage flying around. The Focus Blast Dragalge, Low Kick Greninja, Dynamic Punch Machamp, and Tyranitar in the end, Mega Tyranitar, no room to hold a Choppleberry, ended up sitting on the field at the end of Game 2 at 100% HP. But still, the Nothing Burger put up a good fight here. The Bayonet was... The skill swap Bayonet was a lot of fun. I wonder whether they can do something with that as well in Week 8. But the Sinister Hand do take the win here, despite some really interesting techs on the other side. Next, we have the Minnesota Marshadows against the East Coast Espurr. The Espurr bringing their Mega Salamence with some of the usual supports, Thundurus and Clefairy. There's the Charizard that did a ton of work last week. I could not believe when I went through the stats how many KOs that Charizard got last week. There's the Swampert that got itself pretty high on the KO leaderboard in like 2 matches. Able to click Earthquake, of course, next to any of the 3 flying types here. And then they also brought Florges. As for the Marshadows, we don't get Latios or Mega Gyarados here, or Lairon. They didn't bring Lairon either. Instead, it's some familiar faces in Metagross and Conkeldurr, as well as Garchomp. They brought Sableye as the only Mega, but they could do support stuff with it, with Prankster instead, who knows. Mischievous is just barely hidden there behind Metagross, and they did bring one of their new Pokemon, the one they picked up later, the Mo form Rotom. Which of course is able to threaten Charizard with its Electric Stab, Swampert with Leaf Storm. It can burn Mega Salamence if it's a physical one. So we could see Rotom put in some work here. It also of course double resists electric type damage from the Thundurus. We could see Rotom put in some work here, but otherwise it looks like the same kind of Conkeldurr, Garchomp stuff that we've seen from the Marshadows a few times, and we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see the other new pickups. Thundurus leads with Florges, these are some interesting nicknames that I've noticed over the last couple weeks from the Espurr, as hopefully they're not expressing their opinions over their own Pokemon that they've trained and bonded with for several weeks now. But we get Thundurus and Florges against Sableye and Conkeldurr. Sableye will Mega Evolve immediately and just go for a Fake Out into Florges, so not doing Prankster support stuff, at least in this game. Conkeldurr avoiding a big Moonblast there. Still takes quite a bit from a Thunderbolt, but lands an Ice Punch back into Thundurus for about 70%. Thundurus showing the Citrus Berry, though. It'll get itself back over 50. It is still in range of another Ice Punch, but the Florges, of course, looking very threatening into these two Fairy weaknesses. So we'll see if that Ice Punch comes out maybe later. Conkeldurr will switch out to Metagross for now. We get a big Dazzling Gleam, does about half to Sableye. And a Thunderbolt. Double Up does not get the KO. Sableye gets to land a Foul Play into Thundurus, but after that Citrus Berry, Thundurus will survive. Conkeldurr's back in now, but it comes in on a Dazzling Gleam and just gets knocked out. Thunderbolt into Metagross crits, but it still only does about half. That's not great for the Marshadows, because Metagross... I mean, there's a hole under the Thunderbolt that Metagross might have been able to take without that crit that it won't now. But it will at least get a chance to attack here. Just kidding, it sets the light screen. And then we get Garchomp. Thunder Wave into Metagross. It'll paralyze that, but we get Rock Slide from Garchomp. It knocks out the Thundurus with what I'm pretty sure is an unnecessary crit. The Florges still looks pretty scary. Does it flinch here? And also, does Metagross attack it now? Is Metagross fully paralyzed? Dazzling Gleam does about half to Garchomp, but Metagross does survive. I guess it doesn't have to worry about another Thunderbolt now that Thundurus is gone. It knocks out the Florges with a Meteor Mash. Metagross is low and paralyzed, though, and the Florges did a lot of damage to Sableye and Garchomp, and knocked out Conkeldurr, so it feels like the Marshadows had a good turn there, getting a couple of quick KOs, but they have lost a lot of resources in the process, largely to that Florges just clicking Dazzling Gleam. And now Swampert and Charizard are here. Charizard's just going to protect as it avoids the Rock Slide. Swampert takes very little damage from that. We see an Icy Wind that does some decent damage into Garchomp. No KOs, but it will lower Garchomp's speed. Not Metagross because of Clear Body. Swampert takes very little from a Meteor Mash, which might be the only attack this Metagross has since it's running Light Screen. It might be running Reflect as well, I don't know. There's still one move not accounted for, but if Metagross is going for Meteor Mash into 2 Steel Resist, it probably doesn't have a better attack to hit them, right? Garchomp will switch out here, get rid of the speed drop. Sableye's back. It narrowly takes a Dragon Pulse from Charizard, surviving at approximately 1 HP. Swampert's Scald will knock out the Metagross. That'll force Garchomp back in, but without the speed drop. But Charizard is free to protect again here. It doesn't do that, actually. Instead, Fake Out into Swampert, but Charizard survives the Garchomp Rock Slide and knocks it out with a Dragon Pulse. That Charizard trained just right, I suppose, for this matchup, and it'll protect here. Opponent shocked in the chat that Charizard lived. I was too. I don't know what kind of EV spread they found. But Sableye will drop to a Scald here. And so Charizard and Swampert able to close this one out after Florges laid a lot of groundwork. Reminder, the East Coast Espurr have Mega Salamence and Mega Lucario. They even brought one of them to this match, but their Megas have really not been doing that much work lately. Swampert and Charizard have been doing a lot of the work, and Florges is getting its turn now too, I suppose. Also, Clefairy has been getting a lot of KOs in recent weeks. Yeah, the Megas, they took one of the best Megas, certainly one of the most expensive. And the Megas have not been doing all that much for the Espurr, and they just keep winning anyway. What a menace. Well, let's see if they can keep it up in game 2. We get Clefairy and Salamence. We will see the Mega Salamence now, or at least we'll see Salamence against Garchomp and Sableye. Garchomp leading this time, maybe not ideal as it gets intimidated right away. There's the Mega Salamence. It just protects, maybe covering for something like some kind of tech that the Sableye could have. We saw the Sableye click Foul Play last game. It could still be a support Sableye. We saw Fake Out and Foul Play. So they may be still covering for like a Will-O-Wisp or something. Instead, we get Fake Out into Clefairy. And Garchomp just goes straight for Draco Meteor, so it's a mixed Garchomp. Maybe there's some insight there in how the Charizard survived the Rock Slide. But I feel like you could just still invest mainly in physical attack, right? And just rely on Draco Meteor being a very strong stab attack, even if you're not invested. But I don't know their EV spread, so I'm not going to dwell on it. We saw Charizard take a Rock Slide, and now we see a special attack come out from the Garchomp, but Salamence avoids it. Which also is helpful when Clefairy gets faked out there and can't redirect this turn. Now Clefairy can do that. Sableye will Mega Evolve here. No follow me, so the Draco Meteor just goes into Salamence, but once again, a Pokemon from the Espurr taking a super effective attack that could be very scary and taking a lot of damage, but surviving. And it just throws a Hyper Voice back. I feel like we've largely seen physical Mega Salamence from this team, but we do get that big Aerolate boosted flying type spread Hyper Voice now, doing about half to Garchomp, granted a lot less to Sableye. Foul Play will finish off the Mega Salamence, so it still doesn't get to do a ton here as Clefairy weakens the Sableye some more with a Moonblast. But now Florges is back. Florges can click that Dazzling Gleam. It's very scary into this team, except for one specific Pokemon, and that's this Metagross that just switched in. But then they can still redirect a Meteor Mash. I mean, that'll probably wipe out Clefairy, but... Oh yeah, Friend Guard. Good point. Salamence took the Draco Meteor thanks to Friend Guard, but that... I mean, that's not what happened for the Charizard last game, but that is what happened this game. Yeah, and Clefairy can redirect a Meteor Mash one time at least. But we'll see. They probably have a Steel Resist in the back again, right? I mean, it could be any of their 3 Steel Resist, but I'm sure they have something to help deal with this Metagross. For now, it's a Florges Moonblast and a Metagross for not much damage. Clefairy Moonblast will continue to bump Clefairy up the KO leaderboard as it takes out the Sableye here. Garchomp is back. We'll get a Follow Me, Rock Slide from the Garchomp. Still not doing a whole lot of damage as Garchomp will drop to a Florges Moonblast there. Clefairy takes a Meteor Mash. I really shouldn't be surprised at this point. The Espurr definitely did their calcs. Clefairy surviving a Meteor Mash will get to click that redirection button again. And it does. Okay, but it redirects a Mach Punch from Conkeldurr, so Metagross will get a shot at Florges this turn, but I think not before the Moonblast comes out into Conkeldurr probably. And I'm pretty sure that KOs. We saw a crit. I wouldn't bet the crit mattered. We saw how much Dazzling Gleam did in Game 1, or we got an idea of how much Dazzling Gleam did. That Moonblast probably just KOs without the crit. And now Florges finally drops to a Meteor Mash, but I'm sure the Espurr's last Pokemon matches up well into Metagross. Actually, it has to. They only have Steel Resist left. The specific one of choice here is the Swampert. It's going to take very little from a Meteor Mash, throw back a Scald, no burn, but the Swampert is out-damaging the Metagross. Metagross does get the Meteor Mash attack boost here, so maybe there's something it can do with that. It also gets burned. It doesn't have enough damage anyway. The burn doesn't really matter there. I don't think. And a crit for good measure. That also didn't matter. Yeah, so the Florges definitely the star of this one for the Espurr, which makes sense. The Marshadows brought 3 fairy weaknesses, and they brought all 3 of them to both games. And so the Florges was, I mean, I'm assuming it was either running Scarf or Specs, right? It played like it was choiced. It just sat on the field and clicked the same attack every time. If I look back at the speed interactions, I can probably figure out which choice item it is, but I don't care to. But I mean, just throw off that fairy type damage. They did have the Marshadows did have the Metagross to cover for it, but as we saw, the Espurr have a lot of fairy or a lot of steel answers, and also the Clefairy was clearly EV'd to take a Meteor Mash, so the Metagross wasn't enough. As Florges was able to just actually, Florges was faster than Florges has higher base speed than Metagross. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily prove anything. But yeah, the Metagross not quite enough to cover the Florges, as the Florges was able to just sweep through its teammates before Metagross could get that KO. And then I think any of these 3 Pokemon in the back could have closed this out, but Swampert got to do the honors this time. So I can say what I want about the Espurr deprioritizing their Megas, but clearly they brought just the right game plan for this one. And after Swampert has started in a couple weeks, Charizard was the star last week, now Florges gets his turn. The Espurr definitely making good use of a lot of different pieces of their draft. And we didn't get a single look at what Rotom does, so hey, maybe next week. Next we have the Yosemite Yolteons taking on the Book Club. The Book Club have brought both of their Megas, Lopunny and Gallade, on opposite ends of their team here. We've got the usual heroes otherwise. We've got Tornadus, we've got Zapdos, which has just kind of been one of the best. I don't know, there's not a lot to say about what Zapdos does, but it's kind of just been one of the best Pokemon in Pool A this season. It does have a lot of trouble dealing with the Raichu, and actually so does the Tornadus. The Raichu, of course, able to stop electric-type damage from Zapdos, except Discharge, which will still boost Raichu, but also go into the Pokemon next to Raichu. They could do Disquake, though, with Zapdos and Dugtrio. Dugtrio, I think, is probably here to trap Raichu, because Raichu's been a menace for the Jolteons throughout the season, taking hits on a Focus Sash, landing a Fast Endeavor into things. And it kind of shuts down the Zapdos, which is the Book Club's best answer to especially Gyarados, and not their best answer to Breloom, but a pretty good one. And Raichu's a threat into Tornadus as well, and we don't see Crawdaunt from the Book Club, maybe because Raichu's a threat into that too. Dugtrio can trap Raichu. Dugtrio also can trap Mega Gengar. Depending on its set, it might get the advantage there in that mutual trapping situation. No, it can't. Ghost type trapping immunity is a thing in Gen 6. I think it was added in Gen 6, but I believe that's correct. Ghost types cannot be trapped. So Dugtrio can't trap Mega Gengar, but it is an offensive threat still. And it can trap Raichu. Anyway, Mega Lopunny could be interesting into Mega Gengar because it's immune to Ghost, and it can hit Gengar with its normal stab with Scrappy. Scizor is very strong into Gengar, Breloom, Gardevoir, Hydreigon. We could be about to see Scizor go crazy here. Gyarados can slow it down, but Zapdos can deal with Gyarados, but Raichu can deal with Zapdos, but Dugtrio can deal with Raichu, and that's why we play Pokemon and find out what actually happens, huh? Zapdos leading with Dugtrio immediately. Is it Disc Quake against Gengar and Raichu? Gengar will just switch out. Gengar, of course, still has Levitate this generation, so two different reasons it's not trapped by Dugtrio. So Gyarados will come in here. Gyarados gets feeling comfortable in front of the Zapdos because Raichu's there, but Dugtrio will just protect, no Earthquake here, avoids a Fake Out. Zapdos not taking the bait, goes for Heat Wave instead of an Electric attack, so that does very little to Gyarados. It doesn't have a burn chance. Instead it gets the burn on Raichu. And hey, with the burn damage, it knocks Raichu down to about half already. That's pretty good, especially if you want to avoid the Sash Endeavor situation. Gyarados will switch right back out to Gengar. There's the Endeavor into Zapdos, does quite a bit. Zapdos with more HP than Raichu, but it doesn't take Zapdos down to 1. And Gengar, since it hasn't Mega Evolved, still has Levitate, able to switch in and be immune to this Earthquake. It's also a -1 Earthquake, but it doesn't matter here because it KOs Raichu anyway, and it does nothing to Gengar. Gyarados could intimidate Dugtrio again if it wants, but it's actually a lot harder for Gyarados to come in now because it doesn't have the Raichu giving it cover from Zapdos. But Zapdos is low. The Endeavor still did a lot to it, even with the Raichu only being at like half. So Gengar could just outspeed and KO now, maybe. But Zapdos also gets an action this turn. We do actually see Disc Quake. Dugtrio went for Earthquake and knocked out Raichu. Zapdos goes for Discharge and does a bunch of damage to Gengar. And gets the Para, which I paused at just the right time to leave us in suspense on that one. So Gengar can outspeed and KO Zapdos? Well, not anymore. Hydreigon is here, though, for the Yolteons. Gengar will Mega Evolve, but just get knocked out by Dugtrio Sucker Punch. Dugtrio putting in a lot of work despite that Intimidate early in the game. Still hitting just as hard as it needs to, with that Life Orb helping it, no doubt. Hydreigon will move next, though. Dragon Pulse will take out the Zapdos. Raichu's Legacy still with the Endeavor paying off there. Lopunny comes in just in time to get intimidated by Gyarados. It can, of course, switch right back out if it wants. Instead, Dugtrio will switch out to Scizor. Lopunny will just Mega Evolve, Fake Out Hydreigon. Still decent damage at -1. Scizor takes a Waterfall pretty well, and now it protects, and Lopunny still staying in. Drain Punches Hydreigon. Thanks to the Intimidate into Lopunny, Hydreigon will survive this. But it takes a bunch of damage. Scizor avoids Flamethrower. Of course, Scizor is now free to Bullet Punch Hydreigon next turn, so probably doesn't have to worry about Flamethrower again. Lopunny takes a bunch from a Waterfall. That did more than half. Hydreigon will protect, and it will avoid a Bullet Punch. Lopunny now clicking Return into Gyarados. Not the greatest damage, honestly. Gyarados took that pretty well. I wonder whether the Book Club will be punished for not switching the Lopunny out, as it's knocked out by Gyarados here. Dugtrio is still pretty healthy, though, and it can't be intimidated anymore. I feel like you might have wanted Lopunny to do more damage, but we'll see if Dugtrio can close this one out with Scizor. Hydreigon goes for the double protect, but doesn't get it, so Bullet Punch will knock it out here. And Dugtrio showing the Rock Slide, and yeah, that is enough to just KO the Gyarados. So the Book Club made the right call, leaving the Lopunny in, because they absolutely were able to do enough damage with it. And Dugtrio did a ton of work here. You don't think of... I mean, these are pretty typical Dugtrio moves, right? Protect, Earthquake, Sucker Punch, Rock Slide. You don't think of it as a Pokemon that hits very hard, though. But even at -1, it was getting just the damage it needed to get the KOs itself or set them up for its teammates, and then no trouble closing this one out. So let's see what the Yolteons come up with in Game 2. They're going to have to be careful how they position Pokemon like Raichu and Gyarados, I think. Or maybe we see Breloom and Gardevoir. We get a look at what they can do here. Who knows? It's Gardevoir versus Gallade. I just realized, although only the Gallade here can Mega Evolve of those two. Not Mega Gardevoir, of course. Tornadus and Lopunny against Gardevoir and Gengar. Gardevoir traces Limber, so it can't be paralyzed. That doesn't seem like it's going to be very useful here, but maybe that'll bail that out against Zapdos, and we'll never know. Later in the game, Gengar and Lopunny both Mega Evolve. Lopunny goes straight for the Fake Out into Gengar. Again, that does work because of Scrappy. And also it does quite a bit of damage because Gengar, not very physically bulky. And hey, takes neutral damage from a normal type attack if the immunity isn't an issue. As Tornadus hits Tailwind here, we see Trick on the Gardevoir. It gives a Choice Scarf to Tornadus in return for a Focus Sash. Okay. Well, Gardevoir is guaranteed to take a hit now. That's something. And we get confirmation of Tornadus' item. Tornadus might be okay with the Scarf, though. I mean, it can just lock into Hurricane if they have it, right? And that does... It's resisted by Raichu, but otherwise it does a lot to this Book Club team. Not to this Yolteons. It does a lot to this Yolteons lineup. And we know... You saw my set against the Dewotts. We know Tornadus is not currently choice locked. It's not choice locked until it chooses a move after receiving the choice item, so they can just lock into Hurricane if they have it. Gengar, of course, flinching because of the fake out. Now it protects. Gengar actually moving last this turn because Lopunny used priority, Tornadus used priority, and Gardevoir had the Scarf. Anyway, we see Tornadus instead choice locking itself into Taunt, which is interesting. Taunting the Gardevoir. Interesting choice. Gengar protecting avoids a return. Gardevoir for Trick Room. Okay, I don't know how the Book Club saw that one coming. Gardevoir was trying to set Trick Room. I guess it makes sense in front of their Tailwind, but I mean, I probably would have fallen for that. So well done there, locking into the taunt when, I mean, I hadn't even thought about that option. Gyarados will switch in, it'll Intimidate, Torn. It'll also get taunted because Tornadus can't do anything else unless it switches out. Lopunny not doing massive damage at -1 attack, and then it gets knocked out by a Gardevoir Moonblast, but that gets Dugtrio in. They have Scizor on the field now. Dugtrio Earthquake will not KO the Gyarados this time. Scizor comes in easily on the Moonblast. Dugtrio will get knocked out, though, by a Waterfall. Not quite getting the damage it needs this time. Gardevoir's taunt is over, but so is the Tailwind. Tornadus is here, but Tornadus can never switch out again. These are the last two Pokemon for the Book Club. So whatever Tornadus clicks here, it is locked into for the rest of the game. Not so easy to do something like Taunt here. You probably do just want to lock into Hurricane if you have it. Unless there's some crazy line that they can see that I can't. I mean, Scizor actually... Gyarados is low. Gardevoir is weak to Bullet Punch. Gengar's pretty frail. Hydreigon could probably take a Bullet Punch and Flamethrower you. That's probably where this falls apart. But I feel like Scizor almost could sweep here. So maybe you Bullet Punch and Hurricane Hydreigon, and maybe that gets it done. Let's see. Gyarados switches out to Gengar. The Bullet Punch goes into Gengar. Doesn't quite get the KO. It's Skydrop. And of course it's Skydrop. I should have known it's Skydrop. The Tornadus will lock itself into Skydrop. Remove Hydreigon from the field for now. We know Hydreigon will take damage when this attack goes through, because for some reason, flying types do not take damage from Skydrop, but Pokemon with Levitate do. We can imagine that it probably won't be a lot of damage because Tornadus doesn't tend to hit very hard on the physical side, although this is Focus Sash Tornadus and it hasn't shown a special attack. So it could be invested in physical attack. There's no reason it can't be. This might hit harder than we expect. All of that said, I think Hydreigon... Oh, I was going to say I think Hydreigon gets out of the Skydrop and just Flamethrower Scizor and that's still game, but... If Scizor has Protect, I don't think we know whether it does. Maybe we do. I can't remember if we saw it in Game 1. If Scizor can protect around the Flamethrower every other turn and just Bullet Punch through the team on the remaining turns? I guess it's a question of how long Tornadus can stick around, right? Like, how long do you actually get to do that? But maybe it can work. Yeah, I guess the problem is Gengar gets a free shot at Tornadus while Scizor is protecting. So maybe that doesn't work, but it's a fun idea. Otherwise, I think it's just Flamethrower into Scizor now. Scizor will not protect here, though. The Skydrop ends. We get the Flamethrower into Scizor. No Bullet Punch here either, so we don't know what Scizor went for. Maybe a Bug-type attack into Hydreigon. The Skydrop goes into Gengar this time. Tornadus will get the KO with that, which is fun, but then it takes a ton of damage from a Dragon Pulse. It does survive, but at low HP. Locked into Skydrop, no spread damage. It will avoid a Waterfall there. It'll get one more... Not Defiant Tornadus, by the way. Of course it's not. It's Prankster. We saw the Tailwind, but... It will get one more -1 Skydrop into Hydreigon, not getting a KO, unfortunately, and it'll drop to a Dragon Pulse. So yeah, I feel like Scizor was not terribly far from being positioned to win this one, but Hydreigon was just too strong. And let's see how the Book Club deal with it in Game 3. If we see the Hydreigon again, they have a lot of answers to that, right? Scizor has a tricky situation with Hydreigon because of the Flamethrower, but can still threaten in the right position, and they have two Fighting-type Megas. Let's see what adjustments we get here. Zapdos and Dugtrio again, so back to the Disquake lead, this time against Gardevoir and Hydreigon. Gardevoir will copy Pressure. Hydreigon, of course, immune to Earthquake and resist Discharge, so a little bit of an awkward lead for the book club. And the Trick Scarf Gardevoir, I mean, maybe you don't want to give a Scarf to either of these, but I don't know, we'll see. You can just lock yourself into Moonblast instead and Moonblast these. Nope, it's tricking a Zapdos, removing a Magnet. Rock Slide, not doing a ton of damage. Zapdos not taking a Dragon Pulse especially well. The Discharge comes out anyway. Does it get a Para? Into Gardevoir. Oh, okay, yes, it paralyzes both. Alright. Well, the book club are playing old school VGC here. They get both Discharge Paras, and now they can fish for flinches with the Rock Slide. And even if they don't get them, they get full Paras. That's good old-fashioned VGC right there, or so I'm told. I started playing VGC in Sword and Shield. But I've heard the stories. There's the Discharge. It knocks out the Gardevoir, so that's Pokemon that they don't have to flinch. And there's another one with Hydreigon. No flinch there because it's knocked out by the Rock Slide. And the Yolteons already down to just Gengar and Gyarados. They didn't bring the Raichu, so that Scarf Discharge is pretty free. And Dugtrio can switch out if it wants to get rid of the Intimidate drop, or it can just keep Rock Sliding. But let's see. Gengar will Mega Evolve here. Discharge does not KO the Gyarados. Zapdos may be missing that Magnet that it used to have, although I really don't think Zapdos is upset to be outspeeding Gengar here. Unfortunately for the Yolteons, I think they did this Zapdos a favor by tricking a Choice Scarf onto it. I do not think the book club are complaining about that at all. No Para here though, so Zapdos will drop to a Shadow Ball before Dugtrio gets to move. It's Earthquake from Dugtrio. Knocks out Gengar despite the attack drop. Dugtrio will drop to a Waterfall. But now the book club have two Pokemon left. It's both of their Megas, and all that's left for the Yolteons is low HP Gyarados, and Lopunny will Mega Evolve. No need for Gallade to even move. Fake Out from Lopunny. Gets the KO on Gyarados. And, I mean, what can I say? I didn't love this lead position for the book club because they didn't seem to be threatening great damage into Hydreigon, but like I said, this is old school VGC. We're back in Gen 6 here. It's no problem if you just paralyze both targets with your Zapdos' Discharge after your opponent gifts you a Choice Scarf. I feel like the Scarf Zapdos definitely did a lot more for the book club than it did for the team that gave that Scarf to them. And Zapdos and Dugtrio both put in a ton of work in this set, and so did Lopunny. But I was especially impressed by Dugtrio. It almost always was getting the damage it needed, even with attack drops, and its attack is not super high in the first place. So well done all around there. Now we have the Azure Bay Chatots taking on the Denver Dewotts. The Dewotts have brought that Amoonguss Heatran duo that's so difficult to break. They've brought their Tyranitar, their Mega Gardevoir. They can do Tailwind with Noivern, and we can see big Hyper Voices with Pixelate on Mega Gardevoir. We can see more Rock Slide shenanigans. I think there's a good chance that we will. They also brought Heat Rotom. As for the Chatots, they brought Gothorita, but no Dugong this time, so I think no Perish Trap, but they do have the Trap, just not the Perish. Maybe they want to isolate Heatran or Amoonguss and remove it so that the Dewotts can't pivot them back and forth like they've been doing throughout the season. That would make sense. No Sceptile here either, but Mega Blastoise looks very strong. Okay, actually, yeah, Mega Blastoise looks very strong into Heatran and Tyranitar. It has a bit of trouble with Amoonguss, but maybe the Gothorita is just meant to trap and remove the Amoonguss so that Blastoise can go to work against some of the other Pokemon. I think that makes sense. Depending on its coverage, it could also be strong into Noivern and even Gardevoir. We got Talonflame probably looking to click that priority Brave Bird. Crocodile can intimidate the opponent's Sand Pokemon. Lucario can threaten the Gardevoir with Steel damage, or it can just keep clicking Follow Me like it's often done. And Lopunny's here too. Let's see. Gardevoir and Amoonguss leading against Talonflame and Blastoise. Okay. Blastoise will Mega Evolve immediately, so will Gardevoir, notably Blastoise. Notably Blastoise Mega Evolved first, but Gardevoir's probably faster once they're in their Mega forms. We'll find out after this turn. Blastoise goes for a Fake Out into Amoonguss, and then Talonflame just deletes it with a Brave Bird. But now Gardevoir gets to attack, or gets to set Trick Room. Maybe there's some insight there on why Blastoise was faster. Heatran will come in. Of course, Talonflame still has the priority Brave Bird, so it doesn't care that much about Trick Room, but Heatran, I mean, it could do damage to Gardevoir with that. Heatran's going to take that perfectly well, though. We also see an Air Balloon on the Heatran. Brightbird goes into Gardevoir. Gardevoir takes like 80%, but it does survive. And then Heatran goes next with Heat Wave. Gardevoir with Hyper Voice. Gardevoir will knock out the Talonflame there, but Blastoise... I mean, it doesn't take those two attacks together again, but it took them reasonably well, all things considered. And it misses Muddy Water into both targets. And Lucario's here, but the opponent has been throwing spread damage around, so Follow Me not going to be that valuable. We don't see it here. We see Protect on Heatran, Protect on Gardevoir. They'll avoid the Muddy Waters here. And a Flash Cannon into the Gardevoir slot. Lucario will Detect. Blastoise not protecting. Takes a Heat Wave. Does the Hyper Voice KO? I would think so, and it does. But we're getting toward the end of Trick Room now. I'm kind of curious as to why the Dewotts double protected in their own Trick Room. Maybe they're recovering for Bullet Punch into Gardevoir. I think that makes sense, right? Because if Bullet Punch knocks out Gardevoir, then you don't knock out the Blastoise anymore, and your Heatran's in danger. So that's what they were checking for, I'm pretty sure. And they found no Bullet Punch, so they were able to knock out Blastoise. But they did burn a turn of their own Trick Room in the process. Anyway, Crocodile's here now, but Heatran still has this Balloon. And more importantly, it can just go for a Heat Wave. There's still another turn of Trick Room. It'll Heat Wave, it'll burn Crocodile, doesn't matter. Gardevoir gets both these KOs with the Hyper Voice anyway. And just like that, the Chatots are out of Pokemon. So I can say what I want about the Dewotts using up a turn of their own Trick Room, but they didn't need it. They won the game with the Trick Room still up, and they did successfully scout for that Bullet Punch and not find it. But the double Muddy Water miss, Muddy Water into both targets missing, pretty unfortunate for the Chatots there. I guess a few teams running into some bad luck this week, but let's see if they can turn their luck around in Game 2. We get Rotom and Tyranitar against Talonflame and Blastoise. So Sand up this time. Fake out crit into Rotom. I guess that's a kind of luck. Talonflame setting Tailwind as the Gardevoir's not on the field, so they don't have to worry about Trick Room immediately. Probably. Tyranitar will just throw back a Rock Slide. We see the Chardy Berry on Talonflame. It still doesn't take that very well, but it does take it. Blastoise takes it pretty well. Blastoise will Mega Evolve. Go Will-O-Wisp into Tyranitar. Before Talonflame drops, it'll severely weaken the damage from an opponent. Rotom will go before Blastoise. Rotom was faked out last turn, so it could be Scarf Rotom, and we just don't know yet. It probably is, right? Because the opponent's Tailwind is up, but it goes... I mean, Blastoise is not super fast, but it's in Tailwind. But Rotom goes first, lands the Volt Switch, pivots out of there. Blastoise does survive at something vaguely resembling 1 HP. But now Gardevoir's back. Muddy Water hits the targets this time, but it doesn't do a whole lot to them. It does get the accuracy drop into both, so... Does that make up for missing both targets last game? Getting the accuracy drop into both in this game? I guess it'll depend on whether they miss their moves. That Rock Slide still hits both targets and knocks them both out, so pretty, probably not the compensation that the Chatots wanted. Lopunny and Gothorita are their last two Pokemon. I feel like Gothorita probably is here because we saw the Amoonguss in Game 1, but I could be way off. But it definitely doesn't look well positioned into these two. Lopunny goes for Rain Dance of all things, clearing the sand, but leaving itself and Gothorita vulnerable to damage coming back the other way. I mean, I don't think Gothorita is about to take KO immediately. When we see Hidden Power into Tyranitar, it's super effective. I didn't feel like Hidden Power fighting damage. Do we know whether it's Assault Vest Tyranitar? I don't think we know. I'm going to make a little bit of a controversial choice here. You know, I like to play Guess the Hidden Power when I watch these. A Gothorita clicking Hidden Power into Tyranitar, good chance it's fighting. It probably is. But I'm going to be different and interesting, and I'm going to guess that that's Hidden Power Water, and it's also meant to hit Heatran. No, because fighting would also do that. It could be meant to hit Rotom, but you could just Psychic Rotom. It's neutral. Hidden Power's not... Okay, sorry. I'm not going to be different and interesting. I'm going to be boring. That was Hidden Power fighting, but it didn't do very much. Hidden Power Water is a funny idea, because maybe that could be why they set the rain, but I don't think so. Gardevoir will... Tyranitar will... Oh, Tyranitar misses a Crunch in a Gothorita, so the Muddy Water finally starting to pay off. But Gardevoir says Trick Room. Tyranitar gets to go next and Brick Break the Lopunny for not actually very much damage. Thinking of attacks that are not actually super strong. Lopunny, though, dodging a Hyper Voice. Tyranitar will narrowly take a Hidden Power, but it'll drop to Burn damage next. Gardevoir, though, surviving a Lopunny return. But now Amoonguss is here in Trick Room. It'll get a Spore into Lopunny. It'll take about half from a Psychic, but recover nicely with a Citrus Berry. Gardevoir misses another Hyper Voice into Lopunny. But Lopunny is asleep, and now Gothorita is asleep. The Hyper Voice misses into Lopunny again. Is that 3 times? Into Lopunny specifically? 1, 2. Oh, maybe it's only 2. No, it is 3. 3 consecutive turns. And we get a Rage Powder for safety. Gardevoir misses 4 consecutive Hyper Voices into Lopunny. Return doesn't do very much to Amogus, though, and on the 5th attempt, Hyper Voice finally connects. You know what? I don't know if the Chatots will feel this way, but I think they got their compensation there. They missed Muddy Water to both targets in Game 1. It's a different game if they don't. Maybe nothing makes up for that. But that Lopunny dodged 4 consecutive Hyper Voices from Mega Gardevoir. That's not a sentence you get to say every day. And it was all thanks to Muddy Water that it happened. You think about that while we jump to Pool B. Nope. Yes, this is Pool B. Honestly, I was just vibe checking the number of tabs I still had open, but I got it right. Okay. Snowpoint Snorunts versus Pendragon United. There's that Entei that's been putting in work lately. The Mamoswine is here. Mega Salamence. This is who has Mega Salamence in Pool B, right? But, of course, what you're really here for is the duo of Klang and Minun, boosting each other with plus and minus, and they have actually been putting in work throughout the season. Let's see if they can keep it going here. It could be difficult into Mega Sceptile. Which, once again, is paired with Thundurus, and then they have a bunch of the other usual Pokemon. Let's see if Klang and Minun can come through once again. Thundurus and Clefable against Mamoswine and Entei. Entei will protect here. Follow me from Clefable. Substitute from Thundurus. So Thundurus setting up for something, but doesn't have an issue with this Icicle Crash anyway. We have seen this Mamoswine lock in the past and land its Icicle Crashes, but this time it's going to open with a miss. We see leftovers on the Thundurus. So this Thundurus is, I guess, meant to set up a substitute and sit around for a while, but no Follow Me this turn, so Mamoswine gets to just break this up with an Ice Shard. It does enough damage. They don't have to worry about missing. We see Grass Knot just one-shot the Mamoswine. That's a good tech. And Entei Ironhead not doing a ton to Clefable, so pretty strong start so far from the Snorunts. They also clicked Icy Wind on the Clefable, which is why we didn't see a Follow Me. That'll slow the Entei down. And Clefable takes another Ironhead too, but okay, Klang's here. Now there's more Steel-type damage on the field, but what do they have to threaten the Thundurus? Get the Follow Me and Substitute again. Sacred Fire into Clefable, doesn't get the KO. We see a Citrus Berry on Clefable, but it'll still drop to Flash Cannon from Klang. Gyarados is here intimidating Entei, but Klang showed a special attack there, and it certainly gets electric coverage. Gyarados just protecting. Thundurus shows a super effective hidden power into Klang. So that can be fire, fighting, or ground. We know that it has Grass Knot for Mamoswine, although I'm sure Grass Knot does more than hidden power fighting anyway. What else does Pendragon United have? Togekiss, Mega Gallade. I don't remember what else. I'm not getting any insight from this. Ground. It's hidden power ground because it hits Klang and Minun. Minun also gets Volt Absorb, so you can't electric attack it ever if it's running that ability. Although if they're bringing Minun to a game, it's probably as minus to pair with Klang's plus. But that's my guess for this hidden power. It's hidden power ground, and it's meant to hit these two, which are the main issues for. I mean, Klang can just get zapped by electric stab, but Minun is the main issue for that. Okay, discharge from the Klang, but it went into a substitute without breaking it and to protect. Sure. Now it's Thunderbolt into Entei. It crits, but Entei survives at approximately 1 HP, is able to land a Stone Edge into Gyarados for about half before dropping to a Waterfall despite his Pasho Berry because... yeah, there's no way that damage reduction mattered. Klang now shows hidden power into Gyarados. It's Oh no, into Thunderous. It's super effective. It's probably not electric because I could just discharge here. We know they have it. So that leaves Rock and Ice. It's probably Ice for Mega Sceptile. Recap, Hidden Power Ground, Hidden Power Ice, and I was boring and guessed fighting in that last set. Feel free to track my score if you know the answers on this round of Guess the Hidden Power. Now we get mine in here. So mine, I swear to you, I swear, I'm not kidding. The reason I stumbled over my words there is I was about to say we got mine in the chat, and I was not doing a bit. That was just the wording that came to mind. So we got mine in the chat. Going for an Electro Web that will break the Thunderous substitute immediately. We see what Conberry on the Gyarados, so it survives this pretty well actually, but it does take the speed drop. We see Thunder Wave into Clang, but Clang will go for that Hidden Power Ice, presumably. Anyway, and now Mega Sceptile's here. It'll Mega Evolve. Gyarados protects. Clang protects. Minun gets crit by an Energy Ball, but survives at approximately 4% HP. And shows a Citrus Berry. I swear we saw a Citrus Berry on somebody else. Oh, Clefable had it. Okay, everyone's compliant with Item Clause. We get Light Screen from the Minun. Protect from the Sceptile, but Electro Web will just take out Gyarados here. Actually, Sceptile would have gotten boosted if it had let itself be hit by that Electro Web. A little bit unfortunate timing there. And we see the Hidden Power Ice. Pretty sure it's about to be confirmed that that's what it is, as Clang takes very little through Light Screen from an Energy Ball. And Hidden Power Ice knocks out the Sceptile. So I know I got at least one of these Hidden Powers right this week. And by the way, that was a strong start for the Snorunts, especially with the Grass Knot one-shotting the Mamoswine. And then Minun and Clang pulled this game back. Just completely turned it around, actually. The duo that has felt like a meme throughout the season absolutely dominated this game after literal legendary and Gen 4 third stage evolution here. We're not able to give them a good position to work with. But let's see in game 2 whether the Snorunts have anything to shut Clang Gang down. I don't remember. I have a guess, but I don't remember who Carbon Monoxide Leak is, but that is quite the name to see popping up in the chat. I have a suspicion as to who it is, but I want to acknowledge. Watch out for Carbon Monoxide Leaks, I guess. Okay, Aegislash and Entei against Metagross and Sceptile. Sceptile switches out to Gyarados. It'll intimidate Entei, and Aegislash too if that's physical, but also it'll give Metagross room to just click Earthquake without hurting its teammate. Does a bunch of damage to Entei, more than half, less than half to Aegislash, which is pretty impressive. And then just gets Sacred Fired. 50% burn rate. They do a little bit more than half into Metagross, but they also do get the burn. 50-50. A little bit less than a 50-50 because it also has a 5% chance to miss, but if it hits, it's a 50-50. And we see Substitute on the other side now as well with Aegislash sending it up here. So let's see what they're cooking with that. First, another Earthquake from Metagross. This should not KO Entei because of the burn. Stone Edge will tickle Gyarados a little bit. I mean, it did some real damage, but a -1 attack, not super impressive. And Gyarados even survives a Shadow Ball from Aegislash. Gyarados switches out to Azelf here, as Entei will protect, and Aegislash will King's Shield, go back into Shield form. Metagross Earthquaking, again, its partner is immune, but it doesn't do any damage to anything because they both protected, and Metagross knocked down to like 1 HP by that burn damage, so it's only going to get one more chance to attack. Entei's in range of the burned Earthquake. Well, looks like that's what's coming out next, actually, so let's just watch. Hang on. Switch, Earthquake. Earthquake before Sacred Fire. Earthquake before Gyarados moved. I've been slow on the uptake here. Protect, Earthquake. I've been slow on the uptake here, but that's Scarf Metagross, isn't it? It moved last turn because it was switches and protects from everyone else. Scarf Metagross, I think. We'll get the Earthquake here and knock out the Entei. Azelf Shadow Ball will take out the Aegislash. Metagross faints as well, but in the end, they did take down 2 Pokemon with it, so that's not too bad for the Snorunts. The question is, Clang and Minun are in the chat. Can the Snorunts overcome them this time? It's going to be tough. Well, Azelf could easily have good damage into Clang, right? It could be running like Flamethrower or something. And I better hope so, because they can have Sceptile taking a Hidden Power Ice. Let's see. Sceptile will protect here. Psychic into Clang. That does not fill me with confidence that they have something like Flamethrower to hit it. Azelf takes a ton of damage from Flash Cannon as Light Screen goes up. This was their one chance to special attack the Clang. Outside of Light Screen, they didn't do a whole lot. Now Sceptile will Mega Evolve, it'll Energy Ball the Clang, it crits. But then the Psychic still doesn't do much. Mine and Electro Orb will boost Sceptile. Azelf survives at approximately 1 HP. Sceptile will not get to use that boost as the Hidden Power Ice just one-shots it. Minen will protect here. Clang gets crit again, this time by the Psychic, but still survives. Typing, Eviolite, Light Screen, all coming through. I don't know if Light Screen protects it from a crit, but not every attack has been a crit, so Light Screen has absolutely mattered. Never mind, it gets knocked out by a Waterfall. It clutched up against the Psychic crit, but didn't really gain it anything. And now Minen is all alone against a legendary Pokemon and a mighty rampaging monster known for destroying towns. Don't worry about the type chart right now. I don't know if that crit mattered. Electro Web knocks Gyarados out through the Wakan Berry. Gyarados was low anyway. Minen, full HP, takes down a legendary and whatever kind of rampaging monster I just described. I said that Minen was in the chat, and it certainly is, and it's here to stay, as it delivers the win for Pendragon United. That was quite the set to open up Pool B, but let's see now what we get from the Toronto Tynamos and the Glasgow Girafarig. The Tynamos bringing what kind of looks like a Sun team, except they didn't bring their Mega Charizard Y. They've got Exeggutor and Venusaur without the Charizard. Maybe it's a Trick Room team. Yeah, because they got Exeggutor and Cofagrigus. They're probably running something pretty close to hard Trick Room. Redirection support from Pachirisu, slow threats in Mega Venusaur and Sylveon. Venusaur always free to Mega Evolve because he's not competing with Charizard. And then I don't know what Garchomp is here to do. I mean, it makes things... It adds some variety, right? It could be like Scarf Garchomp, just looking to land super effective stabs into Pokemon like Latios and Metagross outside of Trick Room. Totally plausible. Or it could be a different set, but I think mostly they're looking to set Trick Room and overpower things with Mega Venusaur and Sylveon. The Mega Metagross on the other side could be hard for them to deal with then, but I'm sure they have some stuff teched to beat that. And Cofagrigus, of course, well, it gets Ghost Stab, but it doesn't hit very hard, but that is something. But it also can burn Metagross with Will-O-Wisp, and it also can take Tough Claws away with its Mummy ability. So Cofagrigus might be their Metagross answer, and also a Trick Room setter. And then I could see Venusaur and Sylveon putting in a lot of work. On the other side, we got the Mega Swampert without the Politoed. We do also have the Mega Metagross. There might be more of a focus on that. We'll see how it matches up into the Cofagrigus. Vivillon could be disruptive, putting things to sleep. But one of the possible Trick Room setters is guaranteed immune, Exeggutor. Venusaur also immune to Sleep Powder. But maybe Vivillon does something else, like Redirection here. Girafarig could disrupt Trick Room. It could reverse it. If it gets imprisoned this gen, which I think it might, there's that as well. They have a few ways to be disruptive, but the question is then how much offense do they have? Swampert, Superior. Swampert and Superior are not great into Exeggutor and Venusaur. Metagross is pretty good. But then the question is what answers do the Tynamos have for the Mega Metagross? I have my suspicions about some of the answers they might have, but let's see. I totally glossed over Latios. Latios is very strong into a lot of this team, not so much Sylveon. Anyway, video games. I don't know what happened to the weather setters, but it's time for some video games. Garchomp and Cofagrigus leading against Girafarig and Swampert. So immediately we're getting Trick Room Mind games as Cofagrigus probably wants to set it, and Girafarig probably wants to not allow that, but we'll see. Swampert Mega Evolves immediately. Garchomp will just protect. It's Skill Swap. Is it Sap Sipper? Are they giving Sap Sipper to Swampert? Mega Swampert? That could be super strong into Double Grass. Getting rid of its obvious glaring weakness. Unfortunately, I think I have some inside information here. I don't know what's going on here. I've never seen this before. Word in the Discord is this is just a visual thing that's coming up right now when you click Skill Swap on Pokemon Showdown. We didn't see it with the Skill Swap in the Nothing Burger set, so I guess... I mean, I think these were probably played on different days. I don't know the timing of anything, but... Unfortunately, this looks like an error message that might have meant the skill swap failed. I think that's not what it is. I think it's just a weird visual bug. This is what the PDL Discord is telling me, and I haven't fact-checked anything. But I believe the Girafarig coach, based on what they said in the Discord, will play out this set believing that the skill swap failed, when in fact... You can see, I think you can see if I hover over the Pokemon, it also still says that the Swampert has Swift Swim. But I'm not sure that the skill swap actually failed. I don't know, I'm going off of what other people have said. I don't know what's going on here, I've never seen this before, but... I think we are going to get the Girafarig at least believing that the skill swap didn't work. Anyway, Ice Punch into Garchomp goes into a Protect, Swampert gets burned. Now we get an Ally switch from Cofagrigus. Is Garchomp going for Sword Stance? No Trick Room going up. They're just supporting this Garchomp, trying to enable it to try to sweep, I guess. They do successfully get the... we saw right there. They do successfully get the Ice Punch landed into Cofagrigus instead of Garchomp, and in doing that they take Sap Sipper away from the Swampert and give it Mummy. And I don't know for sure that what I'm seeing in the replay is what displayed for the players during the game, but we did just see there that Swampert had Sap Sipper, and that was overwritten by Mummy there. So I believe the skill swap did work. But no Sap Sipper anymore. Girafarig actually setting Trick Room here. Don't know if they wanted it or they thought they would reverse it there. But it could actually make things awkward for this boosted Sword Stance Garchomp. Unless Cofagrigus wants to reverse it, but then what will Girafarig do? So the Trick Room Mind Game is very much still on. Cofagrigus just throws a Shadow Ball at Swampert. Swampert Ice Punch. Mega Swampert just being very strong. Still does like 60% to Garchomp through the burn. We see a skill swap again. Girafarig giving Swift Swim back to Swampert, I guess, and taking Mummy on itself. I guess that's where we're at now. Swampert as Swift Swim, Girafarig as Mummy. But then Earthquake from Garchomp takes out both Swampert and Girafarig. Cofagrigus, showing that impressive bulk that it has, survives its partner's +2 Earthquake. Gets a little bit of recovery with an Eye Pop-Up Berry. That doesn't do a whole lot of recovery in this generation, but it's something. And with Trick Room up, Cofagrigus can now be threatening into this Latios. We'll see what happens with Garchomp here, though. I mean, Latios might well be faster than Garchomp. Garchomp will protect. Both of these have higher base speed than Garchomp. Garchomp might be able to just attack here in Trick Room. But Garchomp will protect here. Depends on how they're trained, of course. Cofagrigus will do a bunch of damage to Latios with the Shadow Ball. Garchomp avoids an Ice Beam. Leaf Storm takes out Cofagrigus. So now we get to finally see another Pokemon from the Tynamos, as they're still discussing what happened with that skill swap interaction. And yeah, there was some confusion. I think it probably did successfully give the Sap Sipper to Swampert, but it didn't end up making much difference this game. Anyway, Sylveon's on the field. Hyper Voice takes out Charlemagne and does a lot to Serperior. And sure enough, Garchomp does underspeed Serperior in the Trick Room. Knocks it out with a Dragon Claw. So yeah, I'm sure the confusion around the skill swap didn't help, but Swampert never managed to do anything with that Sap Sipper anyway. I guess one thing you could do if you get that set up is you can boost your own Swampert with Serperior, and maybe that's what they were trying to do, but the way this game played out, it didn't really make much difference, unless of course the Girafarig were just so thrown by that situation that the game played out differently because of it on their end. I don't know, but that is another thing that I didn't notice at preview. The Garchomp feels like a weird pick in Trick Room. And of course it was the Girafarig that set Trick Room here, not the Tynamos, but it was the Tynamos who benefited from it. But Latios, Serperior, and I think Mega Metagross, once it's Mega Evolved, I could be wrong about that one. Certainly Latios and Serperior have higher base speed than Garchomp. But if they're trained to be fast, Garchomp will underspeed them in Trick Room as well, and we did just see some of that in Game 1, with Sylveon also taking out the Latios. Let's see if we can get past the confusion and see what the Girafarig are cooking, though, in Game 2. We get Pachirisu and Garchomp, so no Cofagrigus on the field this time. No Trick Room Setter on the field at all this time. Pachirisu and Garchomp against Serperior and Swampert. Looking a little bit different from a certain other time that Pachirisu was on the field with a Garchomp. But we'll see if Pachirisu can still get the same result. We get a Follow Me. Swampert could just Earthquake here, but since Serperior went for Grass Pledge, I'm guessing we're going to get a Water Pledge and the Swamp combo coming out of that. Sure enough, Water Pledge off of Swampert's base special attack, not base, Swampert's special attack stat. Grass type damage into Pachirisu. Not a ton of that makes much difference here. Pachirisu takes the hit, but the swamp goes up. Garchomp gets its speed boost from, or its attack boost from Swords Dance, but it will be slowed here. It protects to get through this swamp turn. Serperior trying to get the KO on Pachirisu, remove that Follow Me from the field, misses a Leaf Storm. Swampert misses it. Well, it doesn't miss an Ice Punch. It Ice Punches into a Protect. Now we see Nuzzle into Serperior. That'll paralyze it, but that won't help a ton in the swamp. And Garchomp is still vulnerable to the Ice Punch. Swampert isn't burned this time. But Pachirisu now able to click Follow Me again. We do see Earthquake from the Swampert. That'll take up Pachirisu and do a lot of damage to Garchomp. Serperior misses an Ice. Serperior. I've been standing up for Serperior when this coach has bashed it. You know how I feel about Serperior around here. I took that thing to a Scarlet and Violet VGC regional. But Serperior, you got to do your part. I'll stand up for you, but missing 2 Leaf Storms in a row is... You're not making it easy for me. Anyway, Earthquake does some damage to those two. Now we get Cofagrigus showing up. Garchomp will protect. As Swampert Earthquake takes out its partner Serperior. They've had enough of Serperior for now. But Cofagrigus now will set Trick Room, and Garchomp can probably... can Garchomp just win from here? I don't know. Maybe we'll have to see how much... What did the damage to Garchomp earlier? I'm so distracted by Serperior's... It was Earthquake, right? So distracted by Serperior letting me down. I can't think straight. I'm trying to think of whether they can burn the Swampert and preserve their Garchomp, but I think the Ice Punch is too strong for that. Wonder how much Shadow Ball does to Swampert. Well, Garchomp will switch out here. Totally fair and reasonable. As the Shadow Ball goes into Latios instead and does like half, Sylveon takes the Ice Punch pretty well, and the Ice Beam crits, and Sylveon still takes it. Now Sylveon can just win with Hyper Voice. Swampert gets Wide Guard, right? But maybe we would have seen it by now if they had it. Shadow Ball gets the Special Defense drop into Swampert for good measure, but it doesn't matter. A Hyper Voice doesn't need that to knock it out at that range. Metagross will come in, protect the return of Trick Room, avoid a Will-O-Wisp. If they have Bullet Punch, they could Bullet Punch the Sylveon, but I don't think they do, because they do just let themselves take a Will-O-Wisp and a Hyper Voice here. Sylveon with the Life Orb, surviving at approximately 1 HP, and burned Iron Head into Cofagrigus, not doing a whole lot. Showing its Aya Pop-Up area again. Metagross not taking a KO on Sylveon, just trying to get rid of this Cofagrigus if it possibly can. It does get a Zen Headbutt flinch there, so it... Okay, yeah, I see you. It does get a Zen Headbutt flinch there, so it denies a possible Trick Room as Sylveon sets up a Calm Mind. Cofagrigus taking another Zen Headbutt, another Calm Mind from Sylveon, but Cofagrigus just going for the KO this time. I don't know, maybe there's some stat keeping reason that they wanted Cofagrigus to get that one, but... Alright, that sure was a set. The Garchomp-Sylveon duo was in the end pretty difficult for the Girafarig to deal with, but otherwise, I think it's best that we put this one behind us and move on, you know? Okay. Salt Lake City Toxic versus Ontario Oguris. The Oguris, to my shock, have broken up that 5 Pokemon core that they keep bringing. There we go. Got the wording right. Week after week. No Thundurus this time. Instead, the other 4 regulars are joined by Mischievous and Jellicent. Of course, Mischievous with Levitate is also something that Miguel here can click Earthquake next to. That's not a huge difference in that sense. The Toxic have brought their 2 obvious game plans. We see the Whimsicott Terrakion duo, and we see the Shuckle Chansey duo. Mischievous is probably here to click Pear Song, so that Shuckle and Chansey can't run away with the game. That ought to be pretty hard for the Toxic to deal with. And then Terrakion Whimsicott is strong, but... Well, we'll see what the Oguris have for that, but... There might be some positions for Jellicent to knock out the Terrakion. Miguel could intimidate Terrakion, but of course the justified boosts outpace that. But then it's also threatening Earthquake. Bisharp maybe can do something. I think the Terrakion is definitely looking like the stronger of those 2 modes, at least for the Toxic here. But they've also brought out Aromatisse and Mega Sableye, so who knows what else they're cooking. I think Chansey Shuckle is just kind of doomed as soon as you see Mischievous on the other side. But maybe I should have more faith that they have a plan to pull this one off. Tornadus and Gardevoir against Chansey and Whimsicott. Okay. Gardevoir will Mega Evolve. We get a Taunt into Chansey immediately. Good bet it's not running a Mental Herb because it's Chansey. It wants an Eviolite, so that'll disrupt it for a while. Taunt back from Whimsicott into Tornadus. Great, now they're going to have to click Skydrop. You brought it on yourself. Salt Lake City Toxic. And the Hyper Voice does a lot to Whimsicott, not much to Chansey. Chansey unable to use Minimize here. Whimsicott will set Tailwind. Skydrop goes into Chansey. Hyper Voice takes out the Whimsicott. Now Terrakion is here, but it doesn't have its beat up buddy. It'll Rock Slide, do a lot to Mega Gardevoir with a crit, but it doesn't quite KO. The Skydrop did very little to Chansey. Chansey gets to knock out Gardevoir with a Shadow Ball, and now the taunt is over. But they can just taunt it again. Miguel is here. Terrakion has no way to boost. Well, it could be running Swords Dance, right? But it doesn't have the rapid beat up justified boost to overcome this Intimidate. Also, no Swords Dance here. I mean, it can't click it anyway because you could just drop to Earthquake then. But it'll just go for a Rock Slide. Try to flinch through this, I suppose. Both these take it. Life Orb on the Terrakion. We see a Skydrop into Chansey. We do see Miguel flinch here. The taunt on Tornadus will end. Another Rock Slide is another flinch. First we see the Skydrop resolve on Chansey, and then we see Chansey minimize, and then we see Earthquake. Knock out Terrakion and connect with Chansey. Chansey's still here though. Chansey with that Eviolite taking these hits pretty well. And now the Shuckle's here. The Shuckle's going to get taunted immediately. No Mental Herb on that either. Chansey does dodge an Earthquake. Get some recovery with Soft Boiled. It could still cheese this one. But now it's taunted. Earthquake misses again. Shuckle getting worn down slowly because, of course, Shuckle is a bug type. Not weak. Even though it's a rock type, it's not weak to Earthquake because it also has that bug typing. Shortly after Wolfglick's Bug Month, we have bug typing coming in handy there. And then Shuckle, beyond that, just has like the highest defensive stats in the game. We're pretty close. So taking a while for that Earthquake to wear it down. But the taunt is just completely... I mean, this whole mode is just completely folding to the taunt. Tornadus not even knocked out by that Rock Slide because Shuckle, along with some of the highest defensive stats in the game, is some of the lowest offensive ones. It's still taking these Earthquakes, but the Toxic just have like no damage back. And they're forced to click attacks because of the taunts. Taunt on Shuckle will end here, and we get a Custap Berry, but that's the power of Prankster. Custap Berry, we've seen it before this season. If the Pokemon is below a certain HP range, it gets priority on its move. One time, at the cost of the berry. Unfortunately, +1 priority Shuckle is slower than +1 priority Tornadus, so it still gets taunted. They prevent the guard split with that. And Earthquake will knock out the Shuckle. So the Custap Berry was a great tech, but this one... the Oguris have this one weird trick that gets past it there. Otherwise, I mean, it activated at just the right time with the taunt wearing off. Unfortunately, they could just taunt again because the Toxic just didn't have enough damage to ever knock either of these out. Now Chansey's on its own. It's not taunted anymore, and it dodges an Earthquake. It can minimize here, or Soft Boiled. It minimizes. If they don't have Mischievous in the back, then I suppose Chansey can still win this, probably. That's +6 evasiveness already. It gets taunted. Probably like to click Soft Boiled, but it can't right now. But it just keeps dodging these Earthquakes. And with the Skydrop connecting, that's going to make the Earthquake necessarily miss. Okay, that's... Wait. Hang on. Okay. It's a visual thing. First of all, let me just say it's absolutely hilarious that Skydrop can lift it up into the sky, and then somehow the attack can miss. I don't know logistically how that's supposed to work. I can understand the game mechanics of it, but like, imagine you're Ash Ketchum and you call a Skydrop, and your Pokemon grabs the other Pokemon, picks it up, and drops it. And somehow, because it was tiny, you missed the dropping it part specifically. But also, you're not holding it anymore. But maybe it kind of looks like you're holding it, because this Chansey bottle is still in the sky. And I was wondering, if you pick it up, Skydrop is a move that I think has been pretty buggy in its history. If you pick it up and you miss the attack, does it just stay semi-invulnerable in the sky? But I think we have our answer. It's hard to tell with the Earthquakes because they could miss anyway, but Chansey able to use Shadow Ball, probably not still in the sky, even though it dodged being dropped from the sky. And again, it dodged specifically being dropped from the sky. It did not dodge any other part of the move. Somehow, it dodged being dropped, but it's also out of the sky. And it finally knocks out this Tornadus on turn 14. And now Bisharp is here. Chansey dodges a punishment. Chansey dodges a knockoff. This would be a good time for Bisharp to have feint attack, because that move can't miss. Although maybe it wouldn't do enough damage to get around the soft-boiled. We're just going to have Chansey looking like it's in the sky for the rest of the game. Nope, finally wears off when it takes an attack. Again, I think that was just a visual bug. Visual goof by Showdown. Chansey was not in the sky, but it looked like it was until something finally hit it. I don't remember what punishment does, but I think it does more damage if the opponent has more stat boosts. So I guess it makes sense to bring here, but... well, we'll see. Chansey still has a lot of soft-boiled left. We'll see if it's enough damage. Iron Head misses. Also, we've seen all of the Oguris Pokemon now, so they didn't bring Mischievous. Chansey's starting to set up with Calm Mind. That'll make it weaker to the punishment, though, if I'm right about what that move does. That definitely did more damage. Chansey surviving at approximately 1 HP, which is saying something, because Chansey has so many hit points to start with. Dodge is a punishment, but yeah, might want to not set up those Calm Minds while the Landorus still has punishment available. But we're back to the Oguris attacks missing. Chansey's still setting up. This is a dangerous game that they're playing. Or I'm wrong about what punishment does. I don't know. One of those is true. The Landorus is missing. Bisharp lands an Iron Head there. Chansey went for a soft-boiled. By the way, all this is without a guard split. Eviolite Chansey is just this bulky. Imagine if they had gotten the guard split. Miguel lands an Earthquake there. Now it's switching to U-turn. It sure is a lot of attacks missing. Iron Head crit. Huge. If they can land another attack, they also got the flinch. Can they close this one out? They missed these attacks. Chansey's going to go for another soft-boiled. They'll land another Iron Head. Another soft-boiled, though. The Toxic not leaving this one to chance. Or not taking their chances, I should say. They get another soft-boiled to get back to full. The Eviolite finally knocked off. That could make the difference here. As +5 Shadow Ball still does very little to Miguel. And the Bisharp coming in clutch in a game that they really could have lost there. Eventually managing to knock off the Eviolite. Probably would have been better to just spam knockoff earlier instead of mixing in all those Iron Heads. But they finally got there, and then they had enough damage with the Iron Head to close this one out. I thought, when I saw the Mischievous at preview, that the Toxic would probably not bring Chansey Shuckle, because the Mischievous can just perish them out of there. And then they did anyway. The Oguris didn't bring the Mischievous. The Oguris had a lot of Chansey Shuckle answers, right? The Taunt Tornadus was enormously disruptive. The Toxic never got their guard split. My god, imagine if they had. But... And for a while there, once Tornadus went down, it looked like Chansey might pull this off. But Bisharp locked in, landed just enough attacks. The lasting image from this one, though, is going to be Chansey getting lifted up into the sky and somehow dodging the part where it's dropped. And that, of course, was only game 1. Before we go to game 2, I'm going to do an extremely rare mid-set Bulbapedia check. I'm going to remember from that time I googled pressure, and I'm going to learn my lesson and not just Google punishment. Who knows what I'll get. I haven't thought about this move in a long time. And I don't think I really ever understood it in the first place. Yeah. Okay, base power 60, but gains 20 for every increased stat stage the target has, up to a maximum of 200. So, yeah, it's reverse stored power. Scales with the opponent's boost instead of your own boosts. So, in the end, of course, it was not punishment that won the game. I didn't even check. Miguel might have run out of PP on that. It was Bisharp knockoff into Iron Head, but that Chansey was playing a dangerous game, continuing to set up in front of punishment. If the punishments had connected a bit more often, then that tech would have really come through. Let's see if it does in game 2. Tornadus and Gardevoir once again against Chansey and Aromatisse. Okay, so that'll stop the... Aromatisse is probably here to stop the taunt into Chansey, but we'll find out, because here comes the taunt. Yeah, it's stopped by Aroma Veil. Hyper Voice crits Aromatisse. Aromatisse knocked to low HP, but survives and gets some citrus recovery. But yeah, Chansey cannot be taunted while Aromatisse is here next to it, so Chansey will get to set up its Minimize. They are, again, going for the Minimize before the guard splits, so it'll be really funny if they have Shuckle in the back and they miss their guard splits, which I believe we have seen before this season. Aromatisse setting Trick Room, so that'll buy some more time for Chansey to set up with the Minimize, as Tornadus switches out to Jellicent. Chansey already at +4 evasiveness. This Mega Gardevoir, though, landing its Hyper Voice. We saw the other Mega Gardevoir take 1 accuracy drop and miss a ton of Hyper Voices, but the Oguris Gardevoir maybe taking things a bit more seriously. Lands a Hyper Voice into +4 Chansey, but still not doing a lot of damage. Well, we'll see what the Jellicent switching is for, though. It takes a Moonblast, no drop. Takes a Shadow Ball, no problem. Hyper Voice misses Chansey, but knocks out Aromatisse, and Jellicent tricks the Chansey and gives it a Choice Scarf. Okay, well that changes things, alright. Shuckle not going for the guard split, as Chansey is going to be choice locked into this combine, so I guess their goal now is for Chansey to just set up and sit on the field forever while the opponents are eventually forced to struggle. I guess that's what Chansey's here to do now. Shuckle not bothering with that. It's going to go for Power Trick. Power Trick, I believe, this is the other old Shuckle strat that I've not seen have the same kind of success. I feel like this goes way back to single battles and older gens, though. Power Trick, I believe, swaps its attacking stats with its defensive stats, and what did I say? Shuckle has some of the absolute highest defensive stats and absolute lowest attacking stats in the game. So now its attacking stats are very high after just 1 turn of setup with Power Trick, and Shuckle being extremely slow. This Trick Room's only gonna last like 1 more turn after the Power Trick, but it will get 1 opportunity to do something with that, and that Rock Slide is actually gonna hurt things now. Unless the Scald burns it, but it doesn't. It also takes the Hyper Voice. Obviously Shuckle not taking hits as well after the Power Trick, so that's a bit of an issue for it. Now I get the Custap Berry. Honestly, not the greatest timing this time, as Shuckle was going to go first here anyway. But it's a big Rock Slide, knocks out Jellicent. Does a lot to Gardevoir, but... well, we'll see if they get the... oh, yeah, they do get the flinch too. I honestly thought that might do more to Gardevoir. But they got the flinch, so that's something. That said, Trick Room's over already. Shuckle came in kind of late in the Trick Room, so Gardevoir will get a chance to knock out Shuckle here, unless it switches. But if it switches, it gives up the Power Trick. Now Miguel is back. Once again, the punishment game is kind of dangerous, right? Like, Chansey's objective here seems to be to just sit here at +4 evasiveness and boost up its special stats and drain all the opponent's PP. There's not much else it can do, I suppose, for the rest of this game, now that it has that Scarf on it. But being locked into Calm Mind, it'll gradually take more damage from punishment if they can land that attack. But Miguel will go for an Earthquake first. Gardevoir switching out, so Tornadus is immune. It also connects into Chansey. Chansey can't click Soft Boiled anymore. Mega Sableye is the last Pokemon for the Toxic. It Mega Evolves. Okay, uses Psych Up to copy Chansey's boosts. So that's how Chansey still made itself useful with the Choice Scarf, locking it into Calm Mind. It wasn't to drain the opponent's PP. The way this Toxic draft is built, that felt plausible. It was the more boosts it has, the more boosts Sableye can copy. So now Sableye is at +3 special attack, +3 special defense, +4 evasiveness. Chansey Sky dropped. It avoids an Earthquake, which Landorus also dodges. We see Chansey dodge the dropping part of Sky Drop again. Imagine you have a small creature in your hand, you hold it up, stretch out your hand, you open your hand, and where did it go? What happened? You don't know. Somehow it's on the ground unharmed. I'm trying to imagine this. It's quite the interaction. Miguel will land a punishment into Sableye. That'll also be boosted by Sableye's boosts now. Sableye goes for Snarl, even at +3 special attack. Pretty weak attack, doesn't do a whole lot here. They go for Taunt into Chansey, but it misses. Punishment misses Sableye. Here we go again with the evasiveness game. And the Snarl damage is adding up on Tornadus at least. Still missing. Miss Punishment. Chansey can only click Calm Mind forever until it runs out of PP. Sableye will recover here. It gambled with getting hit by a couple more punishments there, but it didn't happen. Only now does it go for the recover. I guess before trying to take the taunt on Tornadus, or trying to take the KO on Tornadus with the Snarl this next turn. I understand the timing, but we're gambling a little bit more there than they did in Game 1 when they were clicking Soft Boiled pretty proactively. But it does seem to pay off here. This time the taunt goes into Sableye, but of course Mega Sableye has Magic Bounce, so it's Tornadus who ends up taunted. Miguel lands a punishment. Chansey, not even worth talking about anymore. Sableye will go for one more Psych Up. So now it's at +6 special attack, +6 special defense, +4 evasiveness. And those are all the boosts that it's getting. Chansey has no way to ever quick minimize again. But, oh, Chansey's in the sky again. But does Sableye dodge its punishment? It doesn't. It gets knocked out. And Miguel's weird unusual, obscure tech move finally comes through. And now the Salt Lake City Toxic are in a really awkward spot because it's a faux pas to forfeit in Draft League for stat keeping purposes. You're supposed to let your opponent take the KO. But all Chansey can do is click Calm Mind and eventually struggle until somebody actually knocks it out. Meanwhile, it keeps dodging, specifically the dropping part of Skydrop. Until it doesn't, and that one gets the KO. And hey, I think that was a quicker game than last time, I guess. Chansey and Shuckle came to both games, and Mischievous never did. And never clicked that Parasong. And Taunt Tornadus was shut down pretty much this time, but the Oguris showing they had more tricks up their sleeve. The Trick Scarf, Jellicent. I mean, Chansey was still a problem, right? With Sableye copying its boosts, if Sableye had slightly better luck in front of Miguel, it could win this game, for sure. It gets weird. Oh no, they don't have Bisharp in the back, so it doesn't get weird if they have Bisharp in the back, because they don't. But if the Sableye only has Snarl for damage, and Bisharp resists that, and also gets a Defiant boost, there are a lot of ways that the Toxic were kind of gambling, bringing this, like more than usual, bringing this game plan against the Oguris. The Oguris definitely made a bunch of team building decisions to stack the deck in their favor. And yeah, Punishment is a move that I never properly understood before now, and I can't think of like any format where I've seen it get serious use, so that's quite the tech move. And Miguel coming in clutch once again. The Oguris remain undefeated, and you can't say they didn't deserve this one. And that feels like it should be the end of Week 7, but it's not. There's still one more set that should be a good one. This one between Genie Incarnate and Bois. And I need to get ready for bed. And I've still got other stuff to do before that. So really quickly, there is Perish Trap from Genie Incarnate this time. They brought Mega Gengar and Dewgong. I did not even remember that they had Dewgong, but they can Perish Trap if they want, or they can do Tailwind stuff with Gengar and Crocodile, taking advantage of Tailwind set by either Volcarona or Noivern. And Bois have leaned pretty hard lately on their Trick Room stuff with like Trevenant, Rhyperior, and Greninja. There's no Greninja being annoying outside of Trick Room and then Trevenant setting it up. There's no Trevenant here, but they have brought Rhyperior and Greninja, which have been two of their best Pokemon so far. So Tangrowth, perhaps well positioned to shut those down. We'll see. The Arcanine could put in a lot of work here, but the Crocodile is at least an offensive check to that. Latios versus Gengar is an interesting matchup. I don't know. We're just going to have to jump in. Well, I've brought a couple of excellent Pokemon as well, in Togetic and Ditto. Who knows what they'll do with those. The first word I read when I glanced at the chat was swag. So let's see. Dewgong's very first match, so no wonder I forgot they had it. Okay, anyway. Greninja and Latios against Dewgong and Gengar. Perish Trap immediately. Of course, nobody's trapped on turn 1 because Gengar has to Mega Evolve. Latios will Mega Evolve as well. Greninja protecting here, missing a chance maybe to threaten the Gengar. Never mind, Gengar just protects. Latios is Tailwind. Dewgong not going straight for the Perish Song. I was gearing up to say go straight for the Perish Song, but it doesn't. It Ice Beams the Latios. And Gengar actually switching out now to Crocodile. That Dewgong Ice Beamed a lot, by the way. Greninja Dark Pulse into Gengar, but it hits Crocodile for not much damage. Latios Draco Meteor does a lot of damage to Crocodile, but Crocodile survives, and Dewgong is free to get this KO with the Ice Beam if it wants. And it does. There we go. Dewgong just took down Mega Latios. That's a pretty good season debut for Dewgong already. Arcanine's here now. It'll intimidate Crocodile, and also Dewgong, but Crocodile more important, but maybe not because Greninja Icy Wind with Stab thanks to Protean will knock out Crocodile anyway. D-drop on Dewgong. Dewgong takes a Flare Blitz. It could have Thick Fat. What abilities does Dewgong get? Thick Fat, Hydration, and Ice Body. So that could be functionally resisted Flare Blitz, and it certainly looks like it might have been. Dewgong will go for Brine back in Arcanine and just knock it out with a crit. Alright, great debut for Dewgong. And now we get Volcarona and we get Ditto transformed into Dewgong, so lots of opportunity for Dewgong to put in more work here, as now there are two of them. And Ditto, kind of inconvenient. Ditto can't switch out anymore. It was the last Pokemon they had, so it has to be Dewgong for the rest of the game. Scald goes into Volcarona's Protect. And so does Ditto's Brine. Dewgong will throw a Brine back at Greninja, but there's a lot of water types here. Greninja will Protect, avoiding a Giga Drain as Ditto brines Volcarona, and Dewgong once again not landing a Brine into Greninja. Volcarona will protect. It's in Brine range, and that's before you remember that Brine has that unique mechanic where it does, I think, double damage if the opponent is below half HP. The flavor reason, of course, being it's salt water and you get salt in their wounds. I don't think they've ever made another move like that. Unless I'm just forgetting. Brine is a Gen 4 attack, and I can't think of anything else that works like it. But yeah, even without that boost, Volcarona's in Brine range anyway. It'll protect here, avoid a Scald. The Brine goes into Dewgong. Doesn't do much. Brine into Greninja doesn't do much. We're kind of stuck in a weird position here, but maybe it'll start to get shaken up as Volcarona is knocked out now by this Scald. Brine into Dewgong. Brine into Greninja. Pokemon are starting to get into the Brine boosted damage range at least. Greninja has shown... Okay, it's shown all of its attacks. Protect, Dark Pulse, Icy Wind, Scald. Then we know that Dark Pulse can threaten Mega Gengar. Oh, but Mega Gengar is probably faster than Greninja. There we go, I didn't know that speed interaction. Gengar will protect this turn though. And so will Greninja, and it sure looks like Gengar is faster. Dewgong protects. Ditto might be choice locked into Brine. If it is, then it's used all 5 that it gets, so it'll have to struggle from now on. Ditto, of course, when it transforms into something, only gets 5 PP in each move. So if you choice lock it, you get to move 5 times, and then you struggle. So we're about to find out probably whether it's choice locked. Gengar will throw an Energy Ball at Greninja. Even though Greninja is now a normal type, it's knocked out anyway. And yep, sure enough, Ditto is forced to struggle. And the Brine's not doing much to it, but the Energy Ball will. And so Genie and Incarnate wrap this one up pretty smoothly. I guess you could say that Dewgong stopped putting in a ton of work at just the right time for them, as Ditto was not able to do a whole lot. The Volcarona just like sat on the field and protected for a while. But since they didn't really have a great threat into Dewgong on the other side, the Volcarona doing that was able to, yeah, just drain Ditto's PP, and then Gengar was able to clean up pretty easily. Just a very safe... I don't think Genie Incarnate had to do all that, but it was just a very safe way to wrap things up here. Great debut for Dewgong, but let's see what it can do over the rest of the set. We get Greninja and Latios against Crocodile and Noivern. Okay. Noivern with the Frisk reveals, of course, it's Latiosite. We know it's Mega Latios, but it's Focus Sash on Greninja, which makes sense. Latios will Mega Evolve. This time there's no Dewgong to knock it out with Ice Beam, but instead it takes even more from a Noivern Draco Meteor. Even more on the first hit than it did from one Dewgong Ice Beam. Maybe Dewgong is in the back to get the KO again, though. Greninja will, speaking of ice, use Icy Wind here. We see a Focus Sash on the Noivern. It's knocked down to that. Both these Pokemon take the speed drop, and Latios sets Tailwind, so big speed advantage here for Bois. Even after Crocodile lands a Rock Tomb into Greninja. Does super effective damage into the now Ice-type Greninja, but doesn't KO, but does get the speed drop. But these two both have speed drops, and there's Tailwind on the other side, so Greninja is doing just fine speed-wise. Noivern will switch out now to Dewgong. Let's see if Dewgong can be a hero again. Greninja is protecting, as Latios goes for Surf. Doesn't get the KO on Crocodile and does very little to Dewgong, but Crocodile went for another Rock Tomb into Greninja, so Latios left itself vulnerable there, but not... Excuse me. My throat just, my throat's getting mad at me for this one. Almost done. Latios not punished there. Gets the landed Draco Meteor into Dewgong. Dewgong's just such a good Pokemon, it survives. But not super well. And Greninja Ice Beam will take out Crocodile, but not Dewgong. Dewgong throws a Brine at Greninja, knocks it out. Not resisted because Greninja turned into an Ice type. I think it's probably Thick Fat Dewgong, but it'll be in Flare Blitz range here anyway. Now Gengar comes in. The Intimidate doesn't matter. These don't have a physical attack between them. Gengar will protect around the last turn of Tailwind. But it's Extreme Speed from Arcanine. It knocks out Dewgong with no recoil damage going back into Arcanine. Noivern is here again, though. We see Shukaberry on the Arcanine, which shouldn't matter here, but is good information for a possible Game 3, as Extreme Speed takes out the Noivern. Shadow Ball takes out the Latios. Bois' last Pokemon is Ditto. It'll turn into Mega Gengar. We know it is a choice item, probably a Scarf. And so if there had been a different Pokemon in the back, Gengar might have been able to close this one out, but instead it's just... I mean, this is probably what Bois was fishing for with the Ditto in the back in Game 1. Turning it into Dewgong was not the plan, but here they turn it into Mega Gengar, and so they outspeed and KO the Gengar with its super effective stab. And so a lot has come down to that Ditto, you could say, over the first two games, what Pokemon it turned into and how well that matched up into itself. Let's see if Genie Incarnate can manipulate things to their advantage with the Ditto positioning and maybe play the speed control game in a way that turns out better for them in Game 3. Last set of the week, Game 3, here we go. Dewgong is here once again, leading with Gengar against Latios and Greninja. Gengar Megas, Latios Megas. Dewgong goes for Fake Out into Latios. I forgot that was even an option. So we know it doesn't actually have Perish Song. There's no Perish Trap. The Dewgong has Fake Out, Brine, Ice Beam, and Protect. They bluffed Perish Trap, and then Dewgong was just an offensive powerhouse instead. Fake Out into Latios, but then Dark Pulse goes straight into Gengar and one-shots it. Greninja outspeeding Gengar, not getting a chance to move in this game. Tangrowth will come in here and protect around Greninja's Icy Wind, as Dewgong takes 0 to 3% from that. That's a great damage roll. It might have taken 0%. Speed Drop's not going to matter either. Tangrowth avoiding a Draco Meteor here, as Dewgong Ice Beam does a bunch of damage to Latios. Now it's they're just trying to aggressively get rid of the Tangrowth, I think. Dark Pulse does a lot, not so much after the Citrus Berry. The Draco Meteor actually goes into Dewgong, but we know it doesn't KO. Tangrowth shows Hidden Power. Guess the Hidden Power. That one was neutral into a Dark type, so... maybe something to hit Trevenant. Probably something to hit either Trevenant or Arcanine. It could be Rock to hit Arcanine and Togetic. I feel like it might be something to hit Trevenant. It could be any of Ghost, Dark, and Ice would hit Trevenant and Latios. Ice is also strong into Togetic. All of those resist Tangrowth's Grass Stab. The neutral hit into a Dark type doesn't give me much information. They also just clicked that into Greninja, though. Greninja was an Ice type. If the Tangrowth has a Grass attack, it could just do that into Greninja. Greninja was an Ice type. I feel like Ice would make sense, but I'm locking in my guess for this Hidden Power. Definitely the hardest one this week. I think Tangrowth is running Hidden Power Rock. I have a feeling I'm not getting 100% on Guess the Hidden Power this week. Anyway, Dewgong knocks out Latios again. Did that in Game 1, now it does that in Game 3, but I'm pretty sure it's in Flare Blitz range as Arcanine comes in here. Dewgong switching out to Crocodile, getting the Intimidate into Arcanine. But Greninja's going to be hard to deal with now that we know Crocodile's our last Pokemon. I think we have to hope that Tangrowth can knock it out if we're Genie Incarnate, because I don't know that the rest of their Pokemon are matched up well into it at all. Crocodile does take a Dark Pulse pretty nicely, though, but Flare Blitz into Tangrowth, it doesn't KO. Grass Knot into Greninja. Greninja's not a Water type right now. That doesn't KO either. And now Ditto comes in, turns into Crocodile, gets an Intimidate. Tangrowth switches out to Dewgong. Pretty free Icy Wind from Greninja. Not going to do much to Dewgong, but it'll wear down the Crocodile, get a speed drop. Ditto, or no, not Ditto. Crocodile can go for Earthquake. Pretty sad way for Dewgong to go out in Game 3. Knocked out by its partner, but they do also get rid of the Greninja, which is definitely feeling massively important. The problem is now Arcanine will Intimidate the Crocodile again, and Crocodile can't switch out because the only Pokemon left in the back is Tangrowth. Tangrowth is also at super low HP. But Crocodile could be in trouble here. We also know that it's Shookberry Arcanine. We saw that last game. And Crocodile is going to be at -2, thanks to Ditto turning into it and copying its Intimidate, as well as Arcanine having Intimidate. Oh yeah, Tangrowth has Regenerator, so it's not that low, but it's still going to get knocked out by Flare Blitz. Arcanine will protect here, though. So will Tangrowth. Iron Tail on Ditto locking itself into Iron Tail, revealing that the Crocodile has that and giving them a good way to damage Genie Incarnate's Crocodile. As Arcanine avoids a Rock Tomb, makes sense they'd go for that. I mean, speed control is an issue, but also, again, we do know about the Shookberry on the Arcanine. That's probably the bigger thing here. But Ditto landing its Iron Tails, I believe that move is 75% accurate, but it does connect on both and take out the Crocodile, and Tangrowth will drop to a Flare Blitz now. And Bois, a team that I think I slept on early in the season because they lost once in the first couple weeks. Moving into, I think these two were tied for second in Pool B, right? So the Oguris obviously are still first. They haven't lost, but Bois must be moving into clear second place here. Really grabbing a statement win late in the regular season, as both of these teams will be strong contenders in the playoffs. But Bois making their case that perhaps they're the stronger one. We'll see. I'm sure Genie Incarnate will come back strong if there's a rematch. Really feels like Ditto was the story of this one. And I hate to say it, because I got excited about Dugong's debut, and it looked like it was going well at first. But the one game where Ditto didn't put in a ton of work was the one where it turned into Dugong. Maybe I should leave that there, though, and not ruin a good thing. Ditto was a lot of fun to watch, though. Hey, we kind of bookend this video, because we started with that Yolteon set from last week where Ditto turned into Hippopotas, and now we get some great Ditto gameplay here. And with that, I need to get ready for bed, but this week was nuts, as always. It's so much fun to watch this PDL season. I'm glad that I'm still doing it. And I'm looking forward to what everyone cooks up in Week 8. I bet things are going to get even weirder with some teams already eliminated and looking to go out with a bang. But we'll see.